An 18-year-old female scientist, upon opening her eyes, found herself transmigrated to a Beastman planet, where she was rumored to have awakened a 4S grade ultimate charm pheromone capable of calming the starvation white tiger, the scheming male lion, the domineering panda, and the evil dragon. She was being fiercely pursued by a group of galactic magnets, all seeking her comfort. In the desolate, gloomy, and exclusively favored heart of the planet, a girl with scattered long hair and dressed in tattered clothes was curled up in a shell crater. From afar, she looked as small as an infant, but a closer look revealed she was an adult female. She lay quietly in the barren, massive crater, like a gorgeous flower blooming in the endless night. Fred and Enzo were instantly agitated, their blood surging, especially upon seeing her partially exposed, delicate skin. They had never seen such a beautiful female. They were here today to sweep the battlefield. Just as they received the report that the planet was abandoned and prepared to retreat, everyone's detection wristbands simultaneously sounded. What was displayed was not poison, insects, or resources, but a female. As two colonels, they immediately followed the instrument's direction to the patrol area. They never expected to actually find a female. The two men quickly took off their clothes to wrap her, carefully lifting her as if protecting a precious treasure. Soon, the warship arrived at the medical center of the Central Star military base. Fred took the green passage all the way. When the girl in his arms was carefully placed into the examination machine, Enzo stared intently at the unconscious girl, his eyes full of worry. The body showed healthy indicators, but pheromones unknown. The two men sighed in relief when they saw the healthy status, but frowned again when they saw pheromones unknown. At this moment, Su Tangtang, still in a coma, rubbed her head and woke up. Fred and Enzo rushed forward when they heard the movement. She slowly opened her eyes. They were a crystalline amber color, shimmering with light under the lamp, exactly like a rare gem, which utterly captivated the two men. Su Tangtang was also stunned when she saw them. Two extremely similar handsome faces were close at hand, with deep contours, like Hollywood superstars in European and American movies. She just had an experiment explode. Was she blown abroad? Fred and Enzo, thinking they had startled her, quickly retreated and bowed in a very gentlemanly manner to apologize. Esteemed female, our rash behavior has startled you. How do you feel now? Do you need us to vacate the medical suite so you can rest? Medical suite? Su Tangtang looked at them with a head full of question marks. When they heard the little female speak, her voice soft and sweet, and she even actively inquired about their names, the two men immediately became excited. Esteemed female, we are twin brothers. I am the elder brother, Fred, Colonel of the 1st Special Forces. I am the younger brother, Enzo, Colonel of the Warwolf Anti-Terror Elite. So they're twin brothers. No wonder they look so similar. Su Tangtang was shocked by their excessive politeness and impressive identities. Hello, my name is Su Tangtang. Su Tangtang's appearance now was indeed like a blooming crabapple flower that had just woken up, sweet and moving. Soft smiles appeared in both men's eyes. Su Tangtang was startled by the sudden outpouring of goodwill from them. Her gaze bypassed them and saw a bionic robot, holographic projection technology on the wall, and automatic sensor screens. Through the window, she even saw mecha squads flying in the air, spaceships, and a planetary ring. Only then did she realize she hadn't been blown out of the country, but off Earth entirely. Esteemed Miss Tang Tang, who abandoned you on the venomous insect planet? Females in the imperial capital are already rare, cherished like jewels in every city, let alone an unparalleled beauty like her. Who had such audacity? Fred asked with a stern, icy face. Su Tangtang rubbed her head, pretending to be dazed, as if she couldn't remember anything. Seeing this, the two men became anxious. They had already suspected her pheromone core was severely damaged when they saw pheromones unknown. As expected, is her memory also damaged? It seems she wasn't just abandoned. She must have suffered cruel torture before this. Don't worry about it for now, Fred said, kindly handing her a glass of water. Your body is still very weak. It's not suitable to overthink. Su Tangtang took a sip of water and looked down at the military cloak, covering her body and the large patches of black ash on her skin. May I take a bath? I don't know if I have the honor of inviting you to my residence. We have the most advanced bathtub on Central Star. I guarantee you'll have a very comfortable bath. Enzo turned his eyes towards his brother, his heart suddenly alert. He only now noticed his brother was also staring at her. They had very similar tastes since childhood, but he would never yield. even to his brother. With that thought, he launched his attack. Esteemed Miss Tang Tang, you can also choose to go to my residence. There is a natural hot spring bath there. Surrounded by all sorts of colorful flowers, it's incredibly beautiful. I believe you will really like it. Fred frowned at his brother. The two brothers, who were harmonious moments ago, were now subtly radiating hostility. Su Tangtang looked at their eager, competing invitations and felt a little overwhelmed. Although they saved her, it was inappropriate for her, a young girl, to go to the homes of two men she had just met to take a bath. Right? Fred keenly sensed her hesitation and realized how presumptuous he had been to actually invite a female, whom he had known for less than a day, home for a bath. This could be legally classified as a hooligan offense in the Empire. He used to despise those males who fawned over and wagged their tails in front of females like lick dogs. But now that he had met the female he desired, he was no better, perhaps even worse. Apologies, I was presumptuous. I will contact the Female Protection Agency now. Okay, thank you. Su Tangtang nodded. However, besides the black ash, her body was giving off a foul odor, similar to the sticky liquid of insects, which she couldn't stand for a moment longer. I see there's a bathroom here. Can I use it first? Fred and Enzo turned their faces to look at the narrow, temporary bathroom in the medical room, and they immediately objected in unison. No, this bathroom is too small and too simple. It is simply not worthy of your status. Su Tangtang looked bewildered. What status? It's fine, I don't mind. After saying that, she scurried into the bathroom. A few seconds later, she shyly poked her head out. Could you please help me find a set of clothes? Of course we can. The two brothers looked at her small, timidly peeking head. Her expression a mix of shyness and cautious pleading. Their hearts were about to melt. Because females were scarce in the Empire, everyone enjoyed the highest level of respect and the most preferential conditions, which inevitably led to them becoming spoiled, arrogant, and bossy. Yet Su Tangtang always addressed them politely and showed shy, grateful eyes. Every word she spoke, in her soft and sweet voice, was like a subtle electric current. She was truly special, and they loved it. In the Empire, when a female was discovered and sent to the medical center for examination, calling the Female Protection Agency marked the end of the process. But they absolutely refused to leave. Like two loyal bodyguards, they guarded the little female's bathroom door. Su Tangtang walked into the fully automated bathroom and saw an automatic sensor screen on the wall. A 3D cartoon image of a little bee fluttered out and asked, "What would you like to know?" She reached out and touched the Imperial Civilization option below. It turned out the planet she was blown to was called Central Star, an authoritarian planet ruled by a royal family, covering hundreds of star systems and organizations. The level of technology here was years ahead of Earth. The human race was also different from Earth's. They had all evolved from beasts. Males possessed combat power and scent glands, while females possessed sex hormones used to comfort and mark males, preventing males from having a mental breakdown and reverting to beasts during their rutting period, or when their combat power was too high. The scent gland was usually located on the back of the male's neck, used for females to inject sex hormones, mark their partners, and so on. When marked, males would experience intense pleasure, even feeling blissfully close to death. Sex hormones were unique to females, and their grades were divided based on concentration and type, from low to high: D grade, C grade, B grade, A grade, and S grade. Pheromones of the same grade could comfort males with the same or lower combat power. The highest grade could comfort and mark all males. However, in the Great War 100 years ago, the enemy shamelessly used bloat gas bombs, strictly prohibited by the Interstellar Union, causing a large number of physically weak females to become sterile. Since then, the male-to-female ratio in the Empire rapidly declined, reaching an exaggerated 1:90. Thus, the state urgently issued the Female Protection Law, the 100 female privileges, and a 1 female, multiple males marriage system to maintain social stability. So that's why the two high-ranking officials outside, Colonel Fred and Colonel Enzo, were so polite and considerate to her, just because she was a female. Born a female, she would receive the respect and preferential treatment of everyone without any extra factors. Su Tangtang felt delighted just thinking about it. However, she quickly awoke from her daydream. This range shouldn't include her. She's human and doesn't have pheromones at all. At this moment, Fred and Enzo were waiting patiently outside. The two officers, who usually didn't care about trifles on the battlefield, were now meticulously straightening their collars and carefully combing their hair, seemingly competing in appearance to leave a better impression on the little female. When they heard movement from the bathroom, the two brothers simultaneously looked up. When they saw the little female slowly walking out, their eyes went wide. In the hazy steam, her black, thick, long hair was wet and scattered. Transparent water droplets rolled down her snow-white, delicate skin. She was so beautiful, they wanted to kneel down on the spot and beg her to be their female master. Central Star was close to the sun and had extremely strong ultraviolet rays, so most people had light brown skin. Her snow-white, tender skin was extremely rare and made one want to touch it. "Esteemed Miss Tang Tang, please allow me to serve you and put on your shoes." Fred's speech was a little stuttered. Eager to do something for her, he quickly took the new shoes, walked over, and knelt on one knee. Su Tang Tang was startled by his sudden kneeling. Before she could refuse, Enzo came over with a hairdryer. "Esteemed Miss Tang Tang, please allow me to serve you and blow-dry your hair." Before she could speak, the two men had already acted. Enzo lifted her wet long hair to turn on the hairdryer. A faint, almost imperceptible scent of fairy dust wood unexpectedly rushed into his nose, making his entire nervous system become active. He was intoxicated, wanting only to transform into his beast form and roll happily. When they found her on the venomous insect planet, she smelled of putrid insect mucus and didn't have this alluring scent. But her pheromone core is damaged, and the machine couldn't detect it, so it shouldn't be pheromones. Then it must be a natural body fragrance. He couldn't imagine if this scent were pheromones. Even a slight release would make him tremble with pleasure. Fred was kneeling down, about to cup her foot, when he caught a faint, subtle scent of snow lotus. His hand trembled, and he almost dropped the shoe. He couldn't resist leaning in to sniff carefully. It truly was the elegant scent of a Tianshan snow lotus, so fragrant. He wished he could kneel for a bit longer, kneeling indefinitely to bask in this charming scent bestowed by the little female. Su Tang Tang looked at the two overly eager officers and worried they were acting this way because of her pheromone status, so she proactively brought it up. "Two officers? Was I undergoing a physical examination when I woke up just now?" Fred and Enzo's expressions froze. They were instantly jolted out of the confusion caused by the scent. Had she figured something out? Is she asking this because her pheromone core is damaged and can't activate pheromones, or because she feels they are completely gone? Pheromones are as important to a female as combat power is to a male. Anyone who loses them would be utterly distraught, but they couldn't bear to see the little female sad and miserable. "Esteemed Miss Tang Tang, have you tried activating your pheromones before?" Su Tang Tang shook her head. Fred, who had been very worried, was slightly relieved. "Then, there's no need to worry too much. The previous scan showing, unknown, might mean your pheromones haven't differentiated yet. 40% of the Empire's population only develops them between the ages of 18 and 22. This is quite common. It's also possible that your pheromone core was severely damaged by bad people, which caused the pheromones to be undetectable. But please rest assured, the Empire's technology for repairing pheromones is advanced. As long as you receive treatment and rest for a period, there will be a certain degree of recovery. We will also do our utmost to catch the person who harmed you." What Fred didn't say was that once pheromones are damaged, the damage is permanent, and the best effect from medication is only an 18% recovery. Enzo, afraid she would be sad, quickly added, "Not having pheromones won't affect your health, and we won't discriminate. We will treat everyone equally." "Really?" Su Tang Tang turned to him and smiled. This smile was like a fairy dust wood blooming on a frigid glacier, which utterly captivated Enzo and made the wind seem to bend. Lies. He lied. He would treat her more specially and attentively than any other female because she was the female he liked. Seeing their affirmative looks, Su Tang Tang was somewhat relieved. She had been worried that she wouldn't be able to survive here without pheromones. Now it seemed that Central Star truly had respect and love for females ingrained in its bones. Then she could survive based on her own abilities, just like on Earth. "Thank you." Fred's eyes held a smile. "Esteemed Miss Tang Tang, protecting and loving females is a male's inherent mission and honor. You don't need to thank us. We are undeserving." "Then you don't need to be so formal with me either. You can just call me Su or Tang Tang." The two brothers were surprised and then immediately started vying to use the nicknames. Calling a nickname is a very intimate act in male-female interactions, especially when the female actively allows it. It's tantamount to a sign of favor. Su Tang Tang also smiled. They really loved the sweet feeling. She was suddenly very curious about their star signs. "They must be gentle, right?" Just then, the doorbell rang outside the medical room. The screen showed a notification. Female Protection Agency staff arrived. She had only seen girls in Beastman novels live so well and wished she could go in and act in a couple of chapters. She never expected to actually transmigrate to a Beastman planet where females were respected and males revered them. She not only awakened a 4S grade ultimate charm pheromone, but also had a group of galactic magnates, a starvation white tiger, a scheming male lion, a domineering panda, and an evil dragon fighting crazily for her favor right in front of her. The girl stood frozen in disbelief. This truly is making me fashionable. However, when the girl first arrived on this planet, no pheromones were detected on her body. The two arrogant S-grade males who rescued her had already fallen for her. As the Empire's youngest and most brilliant twin stars, born into a century-old aristocratic family, they wouldn't even spare a glance for a princess with a noble pheromone grade. Yet now, they were fighting over a girl with no detected pheromones, one blowing her hair and the other serving her to put on shoes. They didn't want to leave her for a moment. It wasn't until the staff from the Female Protection Agency arrived that the two men reluctantly let go of Su Tang Tang. Zhao Man, the section chief of the Female Protection Agency, was astonished to see the Empire's proudest and youngest twin star officers attentively serving a female with their heads bowed. But the moment she saw Su Tang Tang, she immediately understood. She's too beautiful. Beautiful miss, I've heard about your situation. I will now take you to the central main brain to check your identity information. Zhao Man opened her terminal, intending to hand over the work to Fred and Enzo. But to her surprise, the two officers had no intention of stopping. Their eyes seemed glued to her. It looks like the Empire's most brilliant twin stars are about to be claimed by this female master. She had no choice but to say, "Then let's go together." Once on the flying craft, Zhao Man chatted with Su Tang Tang. Since Fred and Enzo found it inconvenient to listen, they stood by the window admiring the scenery outside. Enzo couldn't help but boast, "When I was drying Tang Tang's hair just now, I smelled the scent of fairy dust wood. That's my favorite scent." Fred, however, was a little confused. "Are you sure that wasn't the scent of Snow Lotus?" "Of course. How could I mistake my favorite scent? Brother, have you forgotten that a wolf's sense of smell is the sharpest?" "I haven't forgotten, but I also wouldn't confuse the scent of a snow lotus. She is not only fragrant, but also beautiful." His last three words seemed to imply something. Enzo followed his gaze and saw the smiling Su Tang Tang. "It seems my brother is determined to compete with me?" "No matter, he's never lost a competition, regardless of who the opponent is." Fred seemed to sense his emotions, letting out a slight dismissive HMPH. At this moment, inside the Central Main Brain Information Department, Zhao Man covered her mouth in astonishment. How could this happen? Hearing this, Fred and Enzo quickly stepped forward and saw four large characters clearly displayed on the main brain screen. No record found. A mixture of shock and anger, along with a hidden, greedy desire, grew within them. They were furious, as this likely meant she had been abandoned, abducted, or secretly abused since birth. But since the main brain had no information about her, it meant she had no family, no male partner, and now, not even her memory. Doesn't that mean they will be the closest people to her from now on? Observing their reactions, Su Tang Tang generally understood what was happening. She was from Earth, so it was normal for her information to be absent here. Just as Su Tang Tang was worried about how to smooth things over, Zhao Man suddenly broke into a bright, genuine smile. "This is wonderful. The Empire has gained another female. It's simply a gift from the gods." Fred and Enzo also stepped forward, both giving her a formal military salute and solemnly promised, "Tang Tang, we will always stay by your side and protect you well." This completely unexpected reaction deeply moved Su Tang Tang. "Thank you." Zhao Man led Su Tang Tang to the statistics department to input her identity information. However, when she saw the medical report showing pheromones unknown, a look of pity and regret crossed her eyes. This was because her treatment and courtship options in the future would be significantly worse than a normal female's, meaning the Female Protection Agency should give her extra care. After Zhao Man finished recording all the information, she secretly set a 3-month protection period in the background. "Alright, now I will take you to see your new home. There's no need to trouble Section Chief Zhao Man. My brother and I will handle the rest," Fred said, taking the key. Enzo also picked up the newly distributed items. Zhao Man was momentarily stunned, then nodded. She hadn't expected the brothers to be so proactive, even though Su Tang Tang had no pheromones. It seemed they genuinely liked Su Tongtong. When Su Tongtang arrived at the assigned residence with the two brothers, she was completely surprised. She thought it would just be a simple temporary placement room, but instead, it was a 4-story luxury villa fully equipped with smart home technology, advanced sensor systems, and everything else. Furthermore, a cute little bee robot housekeeper flew in the hall. The ultra sci-fi futuristic design completely captivated her. Enzo, however, was dissatisfied. This place is too simple. Fred also frowned. Tongtang, if you don't like it here, I can buy you a fully equipped manor elsewhere. A manor? She didn't understand the world of the wealthy. No need, this place is very nice. Then what do you need? We can satisfy anything. She thought for a moment. I have amnesia and have forgotten a lot of things. I'd be very happy if you'd tell me about this nation's history and current affairs. Since a female was interested in hearing about the nation's affairs, no male could refuse such a request. After all, this was an area of their interest and a great opportunity to showcase their talents. They nodded excitedly, sitting on either side of Su Tongtang, and began to talk non-stop until they finally had to leave late that night. Consequently, when the patrol unit passed the Juqing Via district that night, they were surprised to find 2 abnormally strong S-grade male pheromone scents coming from above and in the bushes of one villa. According to the detector, both also possessed military-grade combat power. Who on earth lives in this villa to merit personal surveillance by 2 high-ranking S-grade military officers? The next morning, as soon as Su Tongtong opened the door, she saw Fred and Enzo waiting outside. One was leaning casually against his flying vessel, holding a large bouquet of crabapple flowers. The other had a group of workers behind him, steadily unloading daily necessities like furniture, sundries, and clothes from the vessel's bay. Seeing her, they both saluted. Enzo handed the flowers to Su Tongtang. It's your housewarming day today. We specially came to congratulate you. Do you like this bouquet? I love it. It smells so good and is beautiful. Did you just pick them? No. Enzo was a little guilty and embarrassed to admit that he had been waiting since the middle of the night, and as soon as the first ray of dawn hit the slightly blooming flowers, he couldn't wait to pick them for her. No? Then why are your ears redder than the flowers? Boom! The blush that was only on the tips of his ears instantly spread to his cheeks and neck. Enzo was teased until he looked like a roasted shrimp. Su Tongtang couldn't help but laugh. Fred, seeing her chatting and laughing so brightly with Enzo, a ripple of emotion crossed his eyes. He put down the items he was holding and walked over. Tongtang, I didn't know what style you'd like, so I just casually picked a few pieces of furniture. I hope you don't mind. Su Tongtang looked at him with her eyes curved in a smile. Of course not. You have excellent taste. Her light compliment erased the subtle bitterness in his heart. He wanted to work harder and do more for her. After unloading the goods, the 2 men cleaned the house with the little bee robot, finally taking a small break late that night. Su Tongtang was extremely grateful and wanted to repay them. Unexpectedly, it was Fred who pulled a box of candy from his pocket. Tongtang, this is for you. Try some. As someone who lived for sweets, she couldn't refuse the temptation. She eagerly took a piece and put it in her mouth. The next second, her entire face changed. A strong, low-quality saccharine taste spread through her mouth. Fred, seeing her expression wasn't good, asked nervously, "What's wrong? You don't like it? Where did you buy this candy?" It wasn't bought. It's supplied by Shinmei Mall specifically for the royal family and palace nobles. It only has 10% impurities. Only 10%? You must be joking. Is there any other kind of candy? Fred and Enzo exchanged bewildered looks, as if to say, candy is candy. What other kinds are there? Su Tongtang understood. The entire Central Star only had this one kind of candy. The only difference was the amount of impurities. The edible range for commoners was 20% to 40%, while the royal palace controlled it to within 20%. As someone who considered herself a sugar addict, Su Tongtang found this completely unacceptable. So that night, she began purchasing raw materials and machinery online to spontaneously develop her own candies. Smelling the finished product's sweet, fragrant aroma, she opened her terminal and sent a message. I have a surprise for you. A surprise? Prepared especially for them? The 2 brothers were overwhelmed. How could there be a female this wonderful in the world? During this time, rumors quickly spread through the military that Colonel Fred and Major Enzo were frequently seen entering and exiting the Juqing Villa district. The Empire's twin stars were simultaneously pursuing a female with no pheromones. The rumor reached the ears of Countess Joy. She couldn't believe the subjects were her own 2 sons, who had even been reluctant to accept the Princess Royal. Fred, Enzo, have you gone mad? You refuse the Princess Royal, whose pheromone grade is noble, only to pursue an ordinary female with no pheromones? Mother, you don't understand her. She isn't an ordinary female. She is the most wonderful female in the world. Yes, I've never met a female more attractive than her. Joy's mouth dropped open. What kind of dreadful, love-struck nonsense is this? What can a female without pheromones possibly have that is so attractive? Joy tried earnestly to persuade her sons. Although I hear her beauty is striking, which is certainly appealing, I hope both of you can be rational. The princess has repeatedly expressed her wish to take both of you as her consorts. If you continue to resist, it could violate the dignity and law of the royal family, and the consequences will be severe. The marriage law has a special provision for S-grade females. Due to their extreme scarcity, they possess the privilege to claim any male of the same or lower grade. Violating this is a breach of law, and the Princess Royal just happens to be S-grade. However, typically no one resists. All males are eager for it, except for the twin stars. This is not only because they dislike the princess, but also because she prefers to mark her consorts and then confine them to her harem for entertainment and re-education, forbidding them from leaving or working. Since the moment they entered the barracks, they swore allegiance to the empire and could never give that up for marriage. The two brothers stood firm. Even if we violate the law and pay a painful price, we will not agree. Joy's chest ached with anger. You can resist the law, but what about your physiological reactions? How will you resist the rut? Fred, I recall the doctor said your rutting period is next month. Without the pheromones of a female of the same grade, how will you get through it? A male's heat is ferocious, and the higher the grade, the more so. Without a matching pheromone to soothe it, he could be tortured to death. I can take suppressants. You can take suppressants for a little while, but can you take them for a lifetime? The suppressants currently on the market only offer a very brief relief effect and have severe side effects. Each time you take one, the next rut will come faster and more violently. Long-term use is no different from quenching thirst with poison. Fred tightly pursed his lips and remained silent. Enzo also didn't know what to say, as his rutting period was right after his brother's. The longing for pheromones during a male's rut is deeply ingrained in his genes. If denied, he will become anxious, go mad, self-mutilate, or even lose all reason. Therefore, they were destined to be controlled by females throughout their lives. Many people automatically match for suitable pheromones through the central main brain when they reach marriageable age, marrying immediately upon a high match, with no affection involved. But they were different. Their hearts already belonged to someone. The Countess, seeing her two nephews fall silent, knew these young men were inexperienced and hadn't felt the severity of the rut, so she threatened them with even worse consequences. Even if you are confident you can resist the heat, you are still soldiers. You go to battlefields full of peril. If your combat value becomes too high and you suffer a mental breakdown without the comfort of pheromones, are you planning to turn into two beasts? Fred immediately denied it. No, we won't break down and become beasts, just like General Aslanti. The Countess took a deep breath. That's the god of war. How dare you compare yourselves to him? General Aslanti is the Empire's extremely rare sulfur monosulfide grade male who has undergone a secondary differentiation and possesses super control abilities. How can two rash boys like you compare? And he remains unmarried to this day only because he hasn't met a female with a pheromone match higher than 10%. Fred and Enzo refused to argue further. They knew her every word was aimed at making them give up Tangtang, which was absolutely impossible. We will strive to follow in his footsteps. They left in a huff, speeding away. After leaving the Count's mansion, Fred rushed into the military training ground to punch, knocking down dozens of soldiers in succession. The gloom in his chest wasn't relieved at all. His mind was filled with his mother's warnings about the rut, sex hormones, and turning into a beast. He was afraid, too. Afraid that when the rut came, his mind would be controlled by desire, and he would become a slave to pheromones, which would mean he could never be with Tang Tang again. Fred walked out of the training ground distraught and, unconsciously, found himself at the Jiuxing Via district. He even raised his hand to knock until a slender, delicate figure opened the door, offering a gentle smile. Only then did he realize what he had done. He had actually walked straight to Tang Tang's house. This was utterly improper. She must hate him now. "I'm sorry, Tang Tang," before he could finish. A white, powder-coated thing dropped into his mouth. An incomparable sweetness immediately bloomed on his taste buds, a sweetness he had never tasted before. What is this? Marshmallow. It's candy that has a texture like cotton. Saying this, Su Tang Tang led Fred into the kitchen and revealed the results of her night's work. On a beautiful plate were colorful marshmallows, apple, banana, and strawberry flavored. "This is the surprise I wanted to give you. Do you like it?" Fred immediately nodded like a chicken pecking rice. "I love it. I love it so much. I never thought Tang Tang could make her own candy, and the taste is so wonderful. It surpasses the purest candy on the planet 1,000,000 times over." "Tang Tang, you're amazing!" Su Tang Tang gently curved her lips. Creating small snacks and candies was merely a trifle for her, a scientific researcher. "If you like it, these are for you. You can come find me if you want more later." This was the first time Fred had ever received a gift from a female, and such a beautiful and precious one at that. He held it carefully, like a treasure, putting it in the pocket closest to his heart. He was both grateful and moved. These candies were like boundless courage, shattering the entanglement and cowardice in his heart. He was no longer afraid of anything, as long as he could be with Tang Tang. "Tang Tang, do you like small animals?" He couldn't wait to show off his prowess. "Small animals? Yes, I do." Su Tang Tang didn't understand why he suddenly asked this. The next second, a strong gust of wind suddenly struck. The handsome colonel, who had been standing in front of her, had transformed into a massive golden-crowned eagle, one of the largest and most ferocious birds of prey on the planet. Although she knew that the people on this planet had two forms, Su Tang Tang was still quite shocked to see this up close. "He calls us a small animal? Am I a tiny ant?" The aggressive golden-crowned eagle gently lowered its body in front of her and spread its wings, as if surrendering to her, and also inviting her to climb up. She suspected she misunderstood. How could a heavily armed colonel possibly let her ride on his back? But his posture certainly suggested it, and he looked slightly hurt when she hesitated. "Are you asking me to get on?" The golden crown on his head nodded. Su Tang Tang raised her foot in disbelief and carefully stepped onto his wing. Feeling the light female on his body, Fred's eyes flashed with contentment and joy. He formally flew out of the villa. Her body suddenly rose into the air, and Su Tang Tang held onto his neck tightly in fright. Just as she worried she might fall due to the high speed, she saw a beautiful panoramic view of the city below. Towering skyscrapers, shimmering solar arrays, a boundless spaceport, a bustling aerial amusement park, and a royal palace even more extravagantly built than the Forbidden City. It was magnificent. She had never imagined she would tour Central Star in this way. It's like a dream. "Fred, thank you, you're so kind." Embraced by the little female's warm arms, Fred felt like the happiest person in the world right now. He wanted to carry her and fly like this forever, never stopping. In the hunting grounds, Enzo was violently venting his anger. Suddenly, he caught a familiar scent. He looked up and saw his brother carrying Tang Tang, flying through the air. A male displaying his beast form and abilities in front of a female is an expression of his feelings, a willingness to submit, and even a sign of courtship. This is usually only done after half a year of getting along. "It's only been a few days. My brother is cheating. If big brother can do it, then little brother can too." Swoosh! He transformed into his beast form and rushed out of the hunting grounds. Enzo crouched in the dense mountain forest. When Fred flew low, he darted out and used his large, fluffy tail to scoop up Su Tang Tang and place her on his back. Then, he sprinted down the mountain road like lightning. Su Tang Tang didn't react at first, thinking she had fallen off the golden-crowned eagle. Only after steadying herself did she clearly see she was on the back of a wolf. Seeing the colossal, muscled physique, a wolf king, her face drastically changed. Just as she was about to call for help, she vaguely smelled a familiar scent. "Enzo, is that you?" Enzo's pointed. Triangular ears twitched, seemingly in response to her. "It really is him." Su Tang Tang was amazed. The snow wolf is hailed as the most beautiful wolf species on the planet, with thick, fluffy fur that is white as snow. They are muscular, have a keen sense of smell, and their limbs are symmetrical and long, allowing for extremely fast running. They were so fast that Fred lost sight of his brother in the mountain road before he could even clearly see his figure. Fred let out a roar that shook the forest and rapidly gave chase. The golden-crowned eagle has the most piercing eyesight in the bird kingdom, capable of looking down upon the planet from 10,000 meters and clearly capturing the movement trajectory of everything. But the dense vegetation in the forest completely obscured his brother's figure, and he quickly lost the trail. The males on the ground who witnessed this fierce competition for the female were all astounded. It seemed the rumors were true. Su Tongtong had just viewed the general scenery of Central Star from the sky, and was now brought down to the ground by Enzo, viewing it from a different perspective. His destination seemed clear. After running down the mountain road, he galloped all the way toward the southwest, entering a world of singing birds, fragrant flowers, and vibrant colors. Is this the interstellar garden? It's so big and beautiful. Enzo knew she loved it, so he slowed down to let her enjoy the view. For some reason, he had been vexed and irritable by his mother's words just moments ago, but now his mood was incredibly calm and pleasant. This feeling was so magical, as if he wouldn't need pheromones in the future as long as she was by his side. Su Tongtong emerged from the excitement of seeing exotic plants and began to seriously observe the beautiful snow wolf in front of her. The more she looked, the more she liked it, and the more she couldn't control herself. What girl could resist a big, white, fluffy dog? Can I pet you? Enzo was overwhelmingly shy. His head almost disappeared into his fur. When he and his brother were educating her about the nation's affairs, they thought she was too young and intentionally avoided some basic female-male biological knowledge. So she didn't know that a male's beast form could only be touched by his female master. Su Tongtong saw his reaction and thought he was resisting. You don't want to? I want to. Very much. He nervously and slowly brought his head closer to her. Seeing this, Su Tongtong immediately hugged him with both hands and enthusiastically rubbed him. So soft. So great. She couldn't help but compliment him, rubbing herself wildly against him. The little female didn't know how ambiguous and bold her actions were. The snow wolf, being repeatedly fondled by her devil's claws, felt his heart about to burst from his chest. Just as he was immersed in enjoyment and closed his eyes, Su Tongtong suddenly stopped. I won't play with you for free. I'll pay you. Enzo's face instantly darkened. What does she take him for? He is not that kind of male. Darn it! It must be because he was provoked by his brother today that he revealed his true form, leading Tang Tang to misunderstand. It makes sense too. What cheap male would show his beast form after only knowing a female for a few days to seduce her? Hey! Is he clearly trying to be played with for free? He paced anxiously, his tail drooping. Just as he was about to transform back into human form to explain to Su Tongtong, he saw her pull a small transparent box from her pocket. Inside were colorful little squares. This is marshmallow. Try a piece and you'll know. Tang Tang took one out and tossed it in the air. Enzo immediately and agilely caught it in his mouth and bit into it curiously. Enzo's eyes immediately burst with utter astonishment, and he let out an excited wolf howl from his throat. It's simply too sweet, too soft, too delicious. Su Tongtong laughed so hard she almost bent over at his reaction. Realizing his lack of composure, Enzo instantly covered his mouth with his paw. How embarrassing. That's not how a wolf should react. I look like a dog being rewarded by its owner. Su Tongtong reached out and rubbed his head. It's okay. This is a surprise I specially prepared for you, and I'm so happy you like it this much. Besides, I think wolf howls are super cool. Really? You don't think it's cheesy? Really? Can you howl at the moon while standing on a cliff, like they do in the holographic media? I only saw those cool pictures in books before. Now that I have the chance to witness it in person, I don't want to miss it. Enzo nodded, strode with all four paws to the edge of a towering, steep cliff, and raised his beautiful head toward the giant full moon overhead, letting out a long howl. The deep echo pierced the entire forest valley, causing countless pairs of dark green eyes to light up from the shadows. Maintaining formation, the pack wolves stood on the rocks, one by one gazing up at their king in the gorge. Meanwhile, Fred, hearing his brother's howl, quickly flew over. The rumor that the Empire's twin stars were openly pursuing a female, relentlessly competing for her favor, and now doing it in their beast forms. The upgraded version spread among the people once more. When it reached the Countess Joy's ears, she was furious. She had thought her counseling that day would make them restrain themselves, but they had become even bolder, brazenly using a public display to declare their ownership. Are they defying me? If this news reached the princess, with her temper, she would surely deal with them severely. She had only these two sons, and such outstanding ones, they couldn't fall so early. She wanted to talk to the female without pheromones, but the Female Protection Agency had set up a 3-month new arrival protection period for her, barring anyone from visiting without permission. What should I do? Pacing anxiously in the living room, a person suddenly flashed through her mind. General Aslanti, Fred, and Enzo's commanding officer. General Aslanti was the empire's god of war, the brother's idol, and the descendant of the Duke Earl family. A rare, noble mutated species, a white fox with extremely rare sulfur monosulfide grade top combat power. He was an unprecedented prodigy who, by age 26, became the youngest god of war in history. The most incredible thing was that, unlike most powerful males who relied on females to survive the rut and soothe their spirits, which could collapse due to high combat power, General Aslanti had maintained his celibate life and stable mental state for 26 years without incident, even with frequent combat. If General Aslanti would intervene, it should be very effective, right? With this thought, Joy immediately began to act. At the Glancemore Manor, a tall, majestic man stood on the vast training ground. The brim of his military cap pressed down on his moon-white, wispy hair, obscuring his solemn, icy, scarlet eyes. A messenger delivered a document. Countess Joy, together with 5 marchionesses, had submitted a petition requesting his assistance. Given that the petitioner was a high-status female noble, he was urged to read it. Aslanti slowly put on his leather gloves. The document essentially asked him to persuade his 2 sons, Fred and Enzo, to stop pursuing a pheromone-less female. A trace of mockery touched Aslanti's lips. He gave his suggestion: to be addicted to female beauty at such a young age, they'll never achieve greatness. Tell them to resign and go home to raise children. The soldiers of the White Fox Legion's 7th unit erupted in laughter. Aslanti turned, his dark cloak billowing in the cold wind, commanding a solemn and dignified departure. Joy, who had waited 2 bitter days, felt her heart sink halfway when she received the reply. Not only was General Aslanti unwilling to help, but he was also treating the matter as a joke. But it's true, she thought. If her sons stayed with that pheromone-less female, they could turn into rabid beasts on the battlefield at any time. Resigning might be better. A sudden flash of inspiration struck her. The general's cold mockery would surely be a massive blow to her sons, their most revered idol, and they might give up out of shame. Thinking this, she happily rushed toward the military camp with the letter. Before she arrived, the 1st Special Forces and the Warwolf Counterterrorism Elite simultaneously received a military order. Planet X, taking advantage of the large-scale armed riots on Planet Carlos, had hijacked hundreds of thousands of civilians and was forcing General Aslanti to a barren planet. 16 planetary leaders were mobilizing their entire forces to jointly kill the general. The order warned that the enemy might use bloat gas bombs if necessary. Fred and Enzo paled. 100 years ago, Planet X's use of the Alliance-banned gas bombs led to the annihilation of Central Star's forces and the death of countless females. If they shamelessly repeated this tactic, concentrating the bomb's power on the general, even the god of war would struggle to survive. The Military Affairs Department urgently ordered them to leave immediately and persuade General Aslanti to withdraw. Ordinarily, Fred and Enzo would have departed without hesitation. But now, they had someone they cared about. They quickly opened their terminals and sent a message to Su Tungtung, apologizing. Tungtung, an urgent war order came in from the front line. We must leave immediately for reinforcements. We can't plant flowers with you. They spoke casually to avoid worrying her. Just like usual, we'll be back when the mission is complete. That's good. I wish you all the best. I'll wait for your safe return. The little female's gentle, tender voice warmed the hearts of the 2 colonels standing on the cold battleship deck. The feeling of being missed and waited for was wonderful. With the flower planting delayed, Su Tungtung felt her body was recovered enough to explore her environment. She realized she barely saw any females on the street. Everyone who saw her stopped and stared, as if she were a rare species. They were shocked that a female, and one so incredibly beautiful, would be walking alone, and so plainly dressed, rather than traveling in the most luxurious flight vehicle with a group of high-grade, handsome males. At a park gazebo, Su Tungtung finally saw a group of females gathered, seemingly discussing cosmetics. She curiously approached and overheard a clear male voice. As soon as he spoke, the surrounding females instantly quieted down. Peering through the crowd, Su Tungtung saw a young man in a white coat wearing gold-rimmed glasses. With a beautiful face sitting in the center, he was using a cream scoop to apply paste to the scarred face of a female. Director Liu, can the scars on my face really be removed? Centella asiatica has antibacterial, repairing, and collagen-regenerating effects. It can alleviate scars to a certain extent. While I can't guarantee complete removal, long-term use will lighten them. Even if they just lighten a bit, that's fine. As long as these scars aren't so hideous, said Amy, biting her lip. She was a D-grade female, the lowest pheromone rank, who had been burned as a child. Lucille sensed her distress. Miss Amy, there is no perfect beauty in this world. Everyone has some flaws. You don't need to feel inferior. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Tong was accidentally shoved by a female rushing from behind and pitched forward, hitting the metal scoop in the man's hand. Lucille looked up and saw a beauty that took his breath away. The breeze gently lifted her dark, soft, seaweed-like long hair, revealing her exquisite, palm-sized face. She was bright, enchanting, and soul-stirringly beautiful, utterly contradicting his recent statement. Lucille's expression froze. For a moment, the world went quiet, and all he could hear was his own heartbeat. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Su Tong bent down, picked up the metal scoop, and handed it to him. Lucille realized how inappropriate his reaction was. Staring at an unfamiliar female for more than 10 seconds was punishable by law. He rose and offered a solemn apology. My apologies, miss. Please forgive my offense. Su Tang looked confused, not understanding how he had offended her, but she noticed something interesting: the red phoenix tail flower badge on his chest. She had read that this badge represented the Imperial Scientific Research Institute. Is he a staff member there? The commotion drew the attention of the surrounding females. Oh my god, she's super beautiful. How can your skin be so fair and delicate? A barrage of compliments overwhelmed Su Tong. Lucille watched her completely bewildered expression, pure and innocent, a stark contrast to her bright, captivating appearance. A hint of a smile leaked into his eyes. She was mesmerizing. She deserves all the most beautiful compliments in the world. He found himself drifting off again, staring at her. What cosmetics do you usually use? You're so well-maintained. What is the scent of your pheromones? What grade? It must be very noble. Facing countless questions, Su Tang chose one sentence to silence them all. I am an orphan and have no pheromones. The chatter instantly ceased, replaced by complete silence. In the crowd, a female, sensing the potential for an awkward situation, tried to activate her A4-type friendly pheromones, which are meant for communication and familiarizing among same-sex individuals by triggering the other party's pheromones. But Su Tang was unresponsive. This only meant two possibilities. Either she was a female of a higher grade than her A grade, or she genuinely had no pheromones. Since all precious S-grade females were recorded and none matched Su Tang's face, only the latter was true. The stunned female quickly withdrew her hand. You really don't have pheromones? Su Tang nodded. She never lied. Lucille's long eyelashes lowered, slightly obscuring the flicker of light in his eyes. The hint of a smile that had appeared earlier solidified. They were not from the same world. He should leave. If he stayed, he couldn't guarantee he wouldn't continue to stare at her. Su Tang's reason for being honest was to dispel their doubts and free up time to speak with the man wearing the phoenix tail flower badge. To her surprise, before she could open her mouth, he left. He didn't even look at me again. He seems uninterested in talking. She was about to follow him, but was pulled back by the group of females around her. Stop. That's a male you can't aspire to. Just give up. The group of females who had been full of admiration and envy now only had pity in their eyes. He is the sole heir of a century-old scholarly family and an extremely rare S-grade male in the Empire. He is very rational and objective in choosing a mate. None of us dare to even think about him, let alone you. Don't let his gentle and approachable nature fool you. He only offers help because we are females and he gives us extra consideration. No matter how beautiful you are, it's useless. Without pheromones, he will politely refuse you no matter how you pursue him. Su Tang felt they had misunderstood something. She just wanted to ask if he worked at the National Academy of Sciences to learn about the scientific level and operational methods here and to see if she had any hope of employment. What is his name? Does he work at the National Academy of Sciences? Was he just now providing you with experimental products? She asked 3 questions in a row. The females present shook their heads, finding her obstinate and giving up on trying to persuade her. They dispersed. Su Tang felt their misunderstanding had deepened, so she decided not to pursue the questions. She turned and looked at the D-grade female, with the scarred left cheek. Were the scars caused by burns? Seeing the other person nod, Su Tangtang continued, "You're already at full maturity. Using external repair creams will have little effect. You need laser surgery or Botox injections for treatment." Amy looked confused, unable to understand what she was saying. Su Tangtang didn't know the level of medical development and professional terminology here, so she couldn't explain clearly right away. She asked for Amy's contact number and then noticed that the man wearing the phoenix tail flower badge hadn't boarded a flight vessel but was walking west. Is he heading back to work? Curious, she followed him. As Lucille walked, he suddenly felt he was being followed. He focused his vision and saw a bright figure in the reflective glass of the opposite skyscraper. It was her. In an instant, his recently calmed heart uncontrollably sped up again. He deliberately walked 2 circuits, confirming that she was indeed following him and not just walking in the same direction. Why is she following me? Did she want to ask him for help, like the other females, and request some creams to improve her appearance? But she was already perfect. Every part of her was flawless. Or was she interested in him? He didn't dare to think that way. The thought made his heart pound like thunder. She was a normal female with no pheromones, and he was an S-grade male. There was no compatibility between them. If she were A grade, B grade, or even a barely passing C grade, or even had a weak pheromone scent, he wouldn't be so certain. But now a huge chasm separated them, and no involvement should occur. He tightly clenched his fists as if making a decision and quickened his pace. He had never been so rude before, knowingly and cruelly avoiding a female who wanted to talk to him. She should give up now, right? Thinking this, he heard her footsteps behind him quicken. Because his strides were long, it was difficult for an ordinary person to keep up, and she was clearly breaking into a little run. Why is she so persistent? He was confused. The females he knew, due to their high status, were generally spoiled and arrogant, especially toward males. They wouldn't have this kind of patience to chase him under the blazing sun, refusing to give up, even when deliberately shaken off. How can I let such a pure, naturally beautiful female endure this kind of suffering? It's despicable. But the strictly enforced male-female compatibility system and the many years of family education emphasizing status-appropriate marriage made him hesitate. So he walked directly to his workplace. Su Tangtang also stopped and looked up at the towering skyscraper, on which large capital letters were clearly written. She smiled in relief. Central Empire National Academy of Sciences. I guessed right, it really is here. She had run the whole way and was breathless and thirsty. She looked for a place to drink water and saw an ice cream vending shop nearby. She ducked inside. The Academy of Sciences strictly prohibits all outsiders from entering. If I go in now, I really won't see her again. As this thought warred in his mind, Lucille, completely surrendered and self-defeated, turned around, only to find the space behind him empty. The little female's figure was nowhere to be seen. Yes, chasing someone under the hot sun all the way without any response. Anyone would be discouraged, he thought, especially a female as breathtakingly beautiful as her. Countless people must actively fawn over her. It's impossible for her to tolerate this kind of neglect. His clenched hands tightened, his knuckles turning white. She must hate him now, this cold, snobbish, and heartless male. He stood on the steps for a long time, until the sun set. Unaware of all this, Su Tangtang walked into the shop, bought a chocolate ice cream, and after a few bites, noticed the shop filling up. Curious, she looked around and saw that everyone wore a phoenix tail flower badge, though theirs were white and smaller, different from the man's deep red one. Su Tangtang approached a man in the crowd. "Hello, are you a staff member at the Academy of Sciences?" Lin Xuan, who was pretending to buy ice cream while secretly glancing at Su Tangtang, was startled when the beautiful little female smiled at him and walked over to talk. He dropped his ice cream and stammered uncontrollably, needing several attempts to speak clearly. Environment Management D Department, Intern Lin Xuan. "My name is Su Tangtang. I'm very interested in your academy. Can I come in for a visit?" Although the director explicitly prohibited any unrelated personnel from entering, Lin Xuan couldn't bear to disappoint her. He gritted his teeth and nodded heavily. "Of course you can, but it's after hours today, and many departments are closed. I'll take you tomorrow." After the two exchanged contact numbers, he watched Su Tangtang leave, feeling completely dizzy, like he'd drunk fake liquor. He was sleepless with joy, unable to believe that an ordinary B-grade male like him had been approached by such a beautiful female. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, inside the pitch-black Songling mid-mountain villa, someone else was also suffering from insomnia. From the moment he turned and could no longer see the small, magnetic figure, Luosili began to regret it. His mind was filled with her voice, looks, and smiles. He wanted to apologize to her, but realized he knew nothing about her. In the middle of the night, he presumptuously called a group of females who were at the park during the day, but they didn't know her either. Recently, in the National Science Institute, a group of researchers were giving a work report, but they noticed that the usually energetic director had dark circles under his eyes, and this was the third time he had spaced out today. "Director, are you all right? Do you need to take a break?" "I'm fine." Luosili came back to his senses and furrowed his brow. Suddenly, a familiar and pleasant voice came through. Luosili instinctively raised his head and saw the figure of the little magnetic person he had been thinking about appear outside the window. The story begins. An 18-year-old female scientist, upon opening her eyes, found herself transmigrated to a beastman planet, where she awakened a 4S grade, ultimate charm pheromone. The starvation white tiger, scheming male lion, domineering panda, and evil dragon are all pursuing her. She was being fiercely pursued by a group of galactic magnates, all seeking her comfort. However, when the girl first arrived on this planet, no pheromones were detected on her body. Therefore, even though Luosili was attracted to the girl, he coldly avoided her, only because he was an S-grade male, and there was no compatibility between them. His deeply ingrained family education about matching social status would not allow him to pursue a girl without pheromones. But when he dumped the girl, he regretted it immensely, to the point where he couldn't sleep late at night. He hadn't expected that his first hesitation would cause him to lose her like this. And so, one day, when the usually energetic, cold-eyed him arrived at the institute, he had already spaced out 3 times. Luosili irritably rubbed his temples. Suddenly, hearing a familiar, sweet voice, he saw the little magnetic person he was yearning for appear outside the window. "It's her! Why is she here? Could the beast god have heard his prayers?" He put down the report and was about to rush over. The next second, he saw a male closely following her. It seemed to be a new intern from the administration department, who was very popular with many females due to his clean appearance. The intern, Lin Xuan, was introducing something enthusiastically. Seeing the little magnetic person occasionally break into a smile of surprise, an intense emotion surged in Luosili's chest. Luosili instantly appeared in front of the two. Su Tengteng was startled by the sudden appearance of the tall figure in front of her. Lin Xuan was also badly frightened. Luosili looked at Lin Xuan with icy eyes. "Who allowed you to bring outside personnel into the institute?" Lin Xuan stammered, unable to speak. He had been so careful, but he still ran into the director. "Director, I'm sorry. My friend was very interested in the institute, so I brought her in." Hearing this, Su Tangtang was astonished. "Isn't this the man I met in the park yesterday? He's actually the director of the research institute." Lin Xuan lowered his head, knowing his job was likely gone. He was about to ask if he could escort Su Tangtang out before receiving his punishment, when he saw the director suddenly place his hand on his chest, bow, and perform a very gentlemanly salute. "May I have the honor of inviting you to tour the Science Institute?" Lin Xuan raised his head in disbelief, thinking, "Director? Isn't that a bit unethical?" He then met Luosili's warning gaze and immediately fled. Su Tangtang was also stunned. She knew she had implicated Lin Xuan and was trying to figure out a solution. She hadn't expected the situation to develop in a completely unpredictable direction. "Director, I was the one who insisted on coming into the institute. Please don't punish him." But before she could finish, Luosili quickly accepted. "Thank you, Director. No need to be so polite. Just call me Luosili," he said. Su Tangtang extended her hand to him in a friendly gesture. "We met yesterday in the City West Park. Do you remember?" Luosili looked at her hand, his expression profound, and firmly grasped it. Her hand felt very comfortable wrapped in his palm. This time, he would definitely hold on tight. "Then let me show you around in detail." Su Tengtang nodded happily. However, she lowered her eyes and asked, "Are you sure you want to walk around holding hands like this?" Luosili followed her gaze. His fingertips instantly released her as if electrocuted. He had held her hand for so long, she wouldn't think he was some kind of pervert, would she? Su Tangtang looked at his earlobes, which were flushed red with embarrassment. She couldn't help but laugh. How could a dignified director be shyer than an intern? In the conference room, the subordinates waiting to report on important work were all stunned by the scene. The director just ditched them to tour the institute with the little magnetic person. As expected of the institute director, Luosili thoroughly introduced the purpose of each location, the concept behind the production lines, and so on. Listening to him, Su Tangtang's gaze held a hint of admiration. She was surprised when she learned he was the director, as he was so young. Remembering yesterday, when the female said he was the sole heir of a centuries-old scholarly family, she had thought he would naturally take over the family business after coming of age. She never expected his knowledge base to be so rich. He truly was a rare scientific genius. At this point, Su Tang noticed a bulletin board with a job posting. Combined with Luosili's introduction, she realized that Earth and Central Star were not far apart in terms of biotechnology development. She could apply for the job. Su Tang then proposed leaving. Luosili immediately panicked. He had reserved a table at the Central City revolving restaurant, intending to have lunch with Su Tang, but he was mercilessly refused. Su Tang was focused on rushing back to study more, combining her knowledge with the needs here to prepare for tomorrow's application. Luosili was busy racking his brains to find a way to keep her when he heard her say, "We'll meet again tomorrow." Afraid that she would vanish instantly like yesterday, Luosili immediately took the phoenix tail flower badge off his chest. Quote, "Take this. With this, you can enter the institute unimpeded anytime you wish. You won't need to look for that intern." Su Tang was shocked by his generosity. This was the director's badge, representing the highest authority and honor of the institute. "No, thank you. I will earn one with my own abilities." Su Tang walked halfway before Luosili was still a little dazed, not fully understanding what she meant. But he was quickly overwhelmed by the joy of anticipation. She will come tomorrow. The next day, Luosili specifically chose a white suit from his wardrobe. It accentuated his slender and tall masculine figure while exuding a gentle, cultured, and mature charm. His staff, who were used to seeing him in a white lab coat, were stunned by this sudden change in appearance. Luosili arrived at the institute early that morning to wait. He waited from dawn till noon, and from noon till the afternoon, until the last item on the agenda for the day, recruiting new employees. His wristband had been worn out from checking it, and his mood had long since turned from anticipation to deep disappointment. Perhaps her promise yesterday was just a perfunctory pretext, and she simply didn't want to see him again. A group of veteran professors from the Science Institute, seeing his poor mental state, suggested he take a break. Luosili got up to leave when the name of the last interviewee, Su Tang, came over the broadcast. Hearing this, Luosili's eyes instantly lit up. The group of old professors began to discuss when they heard it was a female. After all, the work at the institute was very taxing, and some males found it hard to endure. In their opinion, Su Tang was just a willful female causing trouble. An old professor spoke first, his tone not exactly friendly. "Su Tang, are you here for an interview?" Yes, Su Tang sat on the interview bench and greeted the interviewers one by one. When it came to Luosili, she added a highly suggestive wink. Luosili was so captivated that his heart skipped a beat. Seeing this, the old professor asked, "Are you here to interview for the position of director's assistant?" He had seen this situation many times. Females often sneaked into the institute to pursue the director, pestering him and refusing to leave the laboratory. The rule prohibiting all unauthorized personnel from entering the Science Institute was created because of this. Although the director was gentle, refined, and never reprimanded females, that was only out of respect for their gender. In his work, he was always fair, strict, and meticulous, making no exceptions for anyone. Even if she was beautiful and winked, she was practically humiliating herself. The old professor directly asked Luosili, hoping he would say a word to discourage her. "Director, what is your opinion?" Unexpectedly, the next second, Luosili stared straight at Su Tang and said, "Passed." The group of professors was dumbfounded. Passed? What passed? He didn't ask a single question or review any documents, and she just passed? It seems the one humiliating themselves wasn't the little magnetic person opposite, but them. Su Tang cleared her throat. "Thank you for the director's recognition, but I'm not here to apply for the assistant position today, but for a researcher." The moment the words fell, everyone was stunned. If the director truly liked her, having her by his side as a pleasing vase wouldn't be unacceptable. But a researcher was extremely precious. They were the pillar of the Science Institute. The institute had tens of thousands of employees, but only about 200 researchers. Luosili also became more sober. He could easily let her take the assistant position, but a researcher. An old professor was so angry that his beard bristled and his eyes widened. "On what basis? Do you have any work experience?" "None. This is my academic work." Su Tang took out several documents from an envelope. When they clearly saw the words on the documents, the old professors were collectively shocked. It was an internal test paper for the Central Empire Science Institute, one that even they might not be able to fully answer. But what they were holding now was a perfect score paper. The last perfect score was achieved by the director himself. Luo Sili took the paper, his eyes showing a deep sense of awe. The old professors were filled with astonishment. She was not a willful and mischievous female. She was clearly a true scientific genius. Her talent was undeniable in this test paper. There was nothing more to test. They proceeded to ask about her preference. Su Tangtang expressed her desire to become a pharmacologist. Upon hearing this, a professor pondered. The pharmacology department was the core of the institute, and one needed many years of rich work experience or research achievements to join. Although Su Tangtang didn't meet the requirements, the perfect score paper had already proven her capabilities. How about this? Tell us what you know about inhibitors. Su Tangtang accurately analyzed the composition of the inhibitors and pointed out the drawbacks of excessive dosage, which damaged brain cells and led to mental symptoms like mania. She stated that the empire urgently needed a new type of inhibitor and proposed a targeted treatment approach instead of a harsh drug. The production of inhibitors should be linked to pheromones. She spoke eloquently, leaving all the professors aghast. They looked at Luo Sili because these very ideas were what the director was about to publish in a journal, the result of several years of painstaking research by the Institute's researchers. Yet she had discovered them just by casually flipping through a few books. Luo Sili stared at her, his deep purple eyes bursting with incomparable light. He remembered when they first met. He thought she was an ordinary female without pheromones, and he, an S-grade male, was utterly unmatched. Now it seemed she was clearly a dazzling gem, and he was the one who was arrogant and narrow-minded. He was not worthy of her. Luo Sili took a pink phoenix tail flower badge, symbolizing the status of a scientific researcher, from a gift box. He walked up to her and gently pinned it on her. Miss Su Tangtang, congratulations on passing the interview. May I invite you to have dinner with me? Su Tangtang touched the badge and happily went out with him. But a loud and prolonged bell rang. Luo Sili's expression immediately turned serious. The sound of the bell meant there was a disaster. But in recent months, no news of any royal or noble person being critically ill had been reported from the palace. So it could only be the passing of General Yasilandi, who had a status equal to the royal family and had just led a troop into battle. Tang, I understand. You should go quickly. Luo Sili boarded his flying craft and rushed to the palace at the fastest speed. He had heard Fred and Enzo talk about General Yasilandi. He was their idol, possessing an extremely rare sulfur monosulfide grade top-tier combat power. He wondered if Fred and Enzo would be sad to hear this news. She walked aimlessly and, without realizing it, arrived at the interstellar garden again. In a deep crater several meters wide, she saw a small red tiger. He was clearly a decisive and fearsome tiger god of war. Yet the girl treated him like an unweaned cub. She started feeding him goat milk and giving him a bath. The little tiger was filled with despair. It's over. Is the little magnetic person going to see everything? Just moments ago, Yasilandi had used his own strength to fend off the gas bombs. He used his last ounce of strength to return to his homeland. He gradually shed his human form, transforming into a small, wounded tiger, silently welcoming death. However, Su Tangtang, who had just come out of the institute, happened to find him. Seeing the little tiger covered in wounds in the deep crater, Su Tangtang gently stroked his back neck. Unexpectedly, a torrent of pheromones immediately rushed into the little tiger's ruptured scent gland, miraculously reconnecting his broken meridians and healing his shattered skin. This caused the unconscious little tiger to open his eyes again. With that gaze, Su Tangtang felt a deep sense of a will to survive and dependence. Don't be afraid, I'll take you home. Su Tangtang tightly wrapped him in her clothes and flew to the Jiqing Villa district in a small flying craft. At home, Su Tangtang prepared 2 emergency injections. However, she saw that the little tiger, who was just moments ago on the verge of death, had already had his blood coagulate and there were no longer any wounds on him. She was astonished. She hadn't expected the small animals here to have such a strong recovery ability. She used her fingertip to gently poke his furry head. The little tiger purred in comfort and rolled over to expose his soft belly to her, as if saying, "Pet me here too." Su Tangtang was utterly charmed by his cuteness. She thoroughly checked his entire body again, confirming there were no issues before placing him in a temporarily built nest. She considered taking the little tiger to the Animal Protection Agency. She opened her terminal and saw a message. National holiday for 1 week starting tomorrow due to the demise of General Yasilandi. It looks like I'll have to keep this little tiger for a week. The next morning, the sun was almost shining on his backside, but the little tiger was still asleep. She gently poked his head. Still sleeping? Are you a tiger or a little pig? The little tiger felt the movement and slowly opened his eyes. Su Tang then noticed his eyes were red, as beautiful as blood-red rubies. At this moment, the little tiger blinked innocently. Who is she? So beautiful. Is she his mother? The little tiger opened his mouth and let out a sound. Su Tang had expected a tiger cub's meow to be like a kitten's, but it was a high-pitched, childish sound, like a corgi. Su Tang laughed so hard that her body trembled, completely oblivious to the little tiger quietly staring at her chest and swallowing twice. Mommy! Fan! The little tiger suddenly opened his mouth and pounced on her. Su Tang was startled. Reacting instinctively, she picked him up by the scruff of his neck and threw him aside. The force wasn't small, but the little tiger landed steadily on the ground, looking innocent and bewildered. Su Tang hadn't expected such a small tiger to have attacking power, even trying to bite her. "What are you doing?" scolded by Mommy. The little tiger was even more aggrieved. He thumped his head and whined twice, then lifted a paw to rub his empty stomach. He was just hungry. Su Tang actually understood his meaning. No wonder the little tiger had acted so coquettishly towards her, like he was meeting family. So he took her for his mom? She leaned down and rubbed his head. "I'm sorry, I misunderstood you, but I'm not your mommy." The little tiger tilted his head curiously, looking at her. "Not mommy? Then what are you?" Su Tang thought for a moment. "I am your owner." The two words owner came out, and the little tiger immediately felt a comfortable tingle in his heart, a strong sense of belonging. He liked his owner. His tail wagged like a helicopter propeller, overjoyed. "All right, wait here obediently. I'm going to make you some milk." The little tiger sat quietly to the side, watching her hold the milk bottle tightly with all 4 paws, gulping it down greedily. The milk the owner made is so delicious. Because she was always busy with work, Su Tang never had time for pets. She often saw pictures of puppies and kittens posted by others and envied them greatly. She never expected to suddenly have a little tiger. Su Tang stroked the little tiger's chin. "How about I call you Lan Lan?" Hearing this, the little tiger's milk drinking paused. The name seemed a little familiar. "Finish your milk and play here for a bit. I'm going upstairs to prepare a surprise for you." The little tiger seemed to understand, obediently playing with his toys. As he played, he occasionally looked up towards the upstairs. After a while, a call came from upstairs. The little tiger immediately picked up the ball and ran over, seeing a pool of clear water. It can't be a bath, right? He was dumbfounded and turned to run, but Su Tang, quick as a flash, pinched the scruff of his neck. "Where are you going?" "Come here for a bath." It was a gentle voice, yet at this moment, it sounded like an evil devil in his ears. No! He didn't want a bath. The little tiger struggled desperately. Su Tang completely ignored him. "So dirty and still doesn't want to bathe? Do you want to become a dirty tiger?" Without waiting for his resistance, she directly placed him in the water. Under the fierce struggles of the beast's 4 limbs, splashing water erupted from the pool, wetting the entire floor. Su Tang scolded him in dissatisfaction. She extended both hands, one firmly pressing his tiger head, the other tightly gripping his waist, successfully subduing him. Then she noticed that not only did he stop moving, his entire tiger body became incredibly stiff. His rotating eyes were filled with shyness. He didn't even dare to look at her. "What's wrong?" Su Tang felt his unusual behavior and paused slightly. Then she seemed to realize something. She suppressed a smile and said solemnly, "So it's a female." Lan looked confused. "Owner must be mistaken. He's a male." "Male? Little tiger, you're not happy now." He arched his body, spread his 4 paws to the sky, desperately showing off in front of her, like a little hooligan. Su Tang asked doubtfully, "What's wrong, little magnetic thing?" "Wah!" The little tiger was so angry, he let out a cry. "Little magnetic thing, your cry is so cute." "Wah, wah." The little tiger arched his fluffy back, desperately trying to produce a fierce roar, but it still sounded more like a cat's rather than a dangerous roar. Su Tang laughed uncontrollably. After teasing him a few times, she decided to let him go. "I'm sorry, Lan. Owner didn't see clearly just now." The little tiger turned his back to her, as if he no longer wanted to bother with her. Su Tangtang poked his thick paw. Look, whose little male is this? Such a small temper. All right, if you don't want to see me, I'll leave. The little tiger was startled and immediately leaped out of the water, biting her clothes. Su Tangtang was utterly melted by his cuteness. I'm sorry, Lanlan. I shouldn't have teased you. I hurt your tiny self-esteem, but owner will take responsibility for you. Really? A joyful light shone in the little tiger's eyes. Then will owner take responsibility for him for life? He looked at her expectantly, awaiting her silence. Su Tangtang actually understood his thoughts from his sparkling eyes. For life? That won't do. Don't look at how obedient he is now, even more so than a cat. When he grows up, his wild nature will burst out and he might eat her. But you have to be obedient first. You're not allowed to defy owner's commands. Bathe obediently. The little tiger nodded frantically. Lanlan is the most obedient to owner. From then on, he cooperated immensely, and Su Tangtang's cleaning process became much smoother. After the bath, she was completely stunned. Lanlan was actually a white tiger. He was absolutely gorgeous. Had she found a treasure? Su Tangtang couldn't resist picking him up and furiously rubbing him. Lanlan was hit by this sudden royal treatment and struggled for a moment, then leaped, hanging on to her with all four limbs, wagging his tail and acting cute. Just as he was happily enjoying this intimate contact, he was picked up again. What's wrong, owner? Quote, Lanlan, your claws scratched me. We'll clip your nails tomorrow. He was clearly a decisive and fearsome tiger god of war, yet the girl treated him like an unweaned cub. She fed him goat milk and gave him baths. The little tiger was filled with despair. It's over. Is the little magnetic person going to see everything? Just now, under the girl's threats and promises, the little tiger could only compromise and obediently cooperate with her during his bath. As he was happily enjoying his reward report, he was picked up again. What's wrong, owner? Su Tangtang smiled. Lanlan, your claws scratched me. We'll clip your nails tomorrow. The little tiger's expression froze instantly. He shook his head desperately in protest. He didn't. He clearly retracted them. It's just that owner's skin is too delicate. You have to, whether you want to or not. Don't think of acting cute to get away with it. Thinking that he couldn't play with his scratching post without nails, he instantly drooped his head. For some reason, his innocent, tiger-headed, aggrieved look always triggered Su Tangtang's desire to tease. However, she didn't know that this mischievous pleasure would be punished at night. She put the little tiger into his fully equipped, simulated, ecological den, and, seeing him close his eyes, confidently returned to her room to sleep. Unexpectedly, in the middle of the night, something agilely darted into her bed, startling her awake. She threw back the covers and saw a certain little white tiger lying on his back in her bed, still trying to act cute and stay there. Owner, I'm here! Su Tangtang gritted her teeth and warningly picked him up and returned him. Lanlan, sleep in your own den. The little tiger thumped his tail, looking displeased. Half an hour later, he repeated the act. Su Tangtang carried him back again. But after several repetitions, she was almost driven mad by sleepiness. She just couldn't understand. Why wouldn't he sleep in such a beautiful and comfortable den and insist on squeezing in with her? That den isn't as beautiful as owner, nor as comfortable as owner's body. Lanlan wants to sleep with owner. Seeing him stubbornly clutching the bed sheets, determined to stay, Su Tangtang had no choice but to temporarily hold him and sleep. Late at night, in the dark room, the little tiger's pure, clear, ruby eyes stared unblinkingly at the sleeping girl. Owner is so beautiful. And so soft. He couldn't resist extending his tongue and licking her cheek. The next morning, Su Tangtang shuddered. She looked down at the tiger's head, buried in her torn clothes against her chest, her forehead covered in black lines. Lanlan, I told you to be good. Hearing this, he innocently blinked his wet eyes. Indeed, you can't sleep with pets. Su Tangtang took a deep breath, controlled her breathing, and walked into the bathroom with her clothes. Is owner angry? She didn't hug him or cling to him this morning, or even make him a bottle of milk. The little tiger wagged his tail, a little at a loss. Hearing the splashing water from outside, he decided to apologize. However, as soon as he reached the door, his eyes nearly popped out. Su Tangtang suddenly heard a soft, patting sound of paw steps. She turned around, and indeed, it was Lanlan. But why was he bleeding from his nose? What's wrong with you?" Seeing Su Tang rush over anxiously, the little tiger's nosebleed gushed, and he immediately fainted. Su Tang was baffled. She performed an emergency physical examination on him, but found no problems other than some internal heat. So after he woke up, she gave him a good scolding. "This is what you get for messing around all night and not sleeping well. You stayed up late, and now you have health problems, don't you?" "It's not because I stayed up late," the little tiger said shyly, turning his head away, not daring to look at her. Su Tang thought he was unconvinced, so she furiously ruffled his head. "Are you listening to me? If you dare to do this again, I'll throw you out to sleep!" Upon hearing "throw out," the little tiger was so scared that he shook his head repeatedly, clinging tightly to her leg like a koala. "No, don't throw me out. Owner, I'll be obedient." Seeing that her scare tactic had worked, Su Tang happily clipped the little tiger's nails. He disliked it, but couldn't resist, feigning a growl and biting her hand. But as he bit, he couldn't help but lick instead. Owner is just too fragrant and too tender. One day, Su Tang took the little tiger to plant flowers. She carried gloves, a hoe, a watering can, and a series of other tools to the backyard, ready to plant. However, she found she didn't need them at all, because Lanlin did all the work. The little tiger used his thick paws to dig a hole in a few swift movements. After placing the seeds in, he picked up the watering can in his mouth and watered them. The whole process was animatedly done by the tiger, and Su Tang didn't need to intervene at all. She only had to cheer him on from the side. "Lanlan, you're amazing. Lanlan, you're so capable." The more she praised him, the more energetic he became. In less than half an hour, the little tiger coolly finished scattering all the seeds. Finally, he proudly walked up to his owner, held up his head, and in a pose to be praised. A flower butterfly landed on his nose. "So itchy." The little tiger raised his paw to swat it. "Lanlin, no!" Su Tang spoke too late. The butterfly, which had been gracefully fluttering just a second ago, now plummeted straight to the ground. "You could have just blown it away. Why did you have to swat it?" She walked over and, as punishment, flicked the little tiger's head. She carefully picked up the butterfly with clean gloves. The little tiger, knowing he was wrong, followed her into the room. Su Tang opened the medicine box, thinking of saving the butterfly, and began to carefully tinker. The little tiger watched patiently at first, but gradually became agitated. "Owner, why are you paying so much attention to a small butterfly? Is it just because it has a pair of colorful, beautiful wings? If only he had them too." He paced anxiously back and forth, suddenly feeling a ball of fire burning inside his body, as if it wanted to tear through his skin and burst out. Suddenly, a flash of fire lit up the room. Su Tang turned around and saw Lanlan had grown a pair of dazzling crimson wings. Lanlan couldn't really be a divine beast, could he? The little tiger, also happy, was about to flap his wings but found he couldn't fly at all. He then noticed his right wing was broken, leaving only half, which was quite ugly. He was sad and was about to retract them, when Su Tang unexpectedly pounced on him in surprise. "So beautiful! So magical!" The little tiger slowly raised his head, looking at the joyful light in his owner's eyes. He was full of questions. "Doesn't she think it's ugly?" Su Tang then noticed his hesitant hiding. "So this wing is broken. I thought it was naturally so cute." "Don't worry, I'll find a way to heal it. Then our Lanlan will be the most special and beautiful divine beast in the world." "Really?" The little tiger was completely energized. He leapt directly into his owner's arms. He was so happy. He loved his owner most in the whole world. "All right, you clingy monster." Su Tang's neck tickled from his licking, and she laughed, rubbing his head. Treating Lanlan's broken wing was a big project. It wasn't an ordinary tiger, so the wings that grew weren't ordinary either. Ordinary methods wouldn't work at all. She suddenly thought of the Science Institute. There was a historic imperial museum there, housing many rare treasures, books, and magical potions. Unfortunately, it was currently closed for renovation. So, Su Tang, carrying the little tiger, used her phoenix tail flower badge to secretly sneak into the deserted Science Institute. When she entered the #1 key laboratory, she was shocked by the scene inside. Various experimental machines, a complete range of auxiliary tools, and looking up, potion storage compartments that seemed endless, each locked and numbered in the tens of thousands. She woke up the nearby intelligent assistant, hoping to obtain relevant potion ingredients by searching for keywords, but the screen only allowed inputting serial numbers. This must be the laboratory's anti-theft system. Only professionals could retrieve potions by serial number. Just as she was distressed about how to solve this, a video call from Luo Sealy suddenly came through on her terminal. Su Tangtang immediately panicked. She hesitated, wondering if it was appropriate to be caught by her superior during the closure, secretly infiltrating the lab to steal potions. But then she looked at Lan Lan. Treating his wing was more important. Su Tangtang prepared herself and clicked to answer. On the other end, Luasili, who hadn't closed his eyes for several days and nights, immediately felt all his fatigue and exhaustion vanish the moment he saw the girl. Before, he always thought protective suits were cold and rigid, but now, worn by the girl, they exuded a cool, mysterious, and ascetic aura. He tightened his hands, thinking he must be too tired, otherwise, how could he have such impure thoughts? Tang, how did you get into laboratory number 1? You found out because I'm wearing a protective suit? No, I know everyone who enters the institute by swiping their badge, let alone you. I even set up a special alert sound for your unique pink female badge. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sneak into the institute. My pet's wing is a bit injured. Seeing her misunderstanding, Luasili quickly explained, Tang, I'm not blaming you. I'm just curious why you would enter the institute at this hour. Also, he had missed her terribly these past few days. He didn't dare to express it casually, instead staring fixedly at Su Tangtang. My point is, in my domain, you can always do as you please. Such indulgent words made Su Tangtang pause. Then she smiled, her eyes curving. Thank you. The little tiger who was exploring the laboratory suddenly heard the voice of an adult male. His ears perked up, and he immediately returned at 180 miles per hour, leaping onto the experimental table. Sure enough, on the terminal, he saw a flashy-looking male staring intently at his owner, his eyes filled with intense love. A natural hostility surged from deep within him. The little tiger roared with fury, baring his teeth and hissing at him. Su Tangtang reached out and cupped his head. No roaring! He was stopped before he could even unleash his power. The tiger became even angrier and let out a growl. Wah! Luasili was surprised to hear the sound and paused, seemingly pondering. Tang, is your pet a duck? Su Tangtang laughed uncontrollably, looking at Lan Lan, who was struggling desperately beside her. Wah! The little tiger roared even more fiercely. He's the duck! He's going to bite this stupid, annoying male who dares to covet his owner. I'm sorry, he's a bit mischievous. I'll teach him a lesson. She turned, cupped Lan Lan's small head, and gently ruffled it. What are you doing? Not being good again? Did you forget what you promised me? The little tiger looked at her and immediately deflated. Luasili heard that she was going to teach her pet a lesson and was about to intervene when he heard her voice and saw the arc of her arm swaying. He suddenly felt a little envious. This was hardly a lesson. It was clearly doting. The gestures were so intimate, the voice so gentle. If she did that to him, he wondered if his beast nature would like it. He shook his head, thinking, what's wrong with me? I've actually fallen to the point of wanting to be a pet. After getting the serial numbers from Luasili, Su Tangtang worked tirelessly for a day and finally concocted a restorative liquid. However, this potion seemed to have a hypnotic effect. Lan Lan slept for 20 hours a day, sometimes even a whole day. But each time he woke up, he was more energetic than before, and not only did his broken wing grow, his size also visibly increased. Something's happened. In front of everyone, the two brothers directly transformed into their beast forms, completely losing control. Just moments ago, Fred and Enzo had come to attend the memorial service for the god of war. As they were preparing to leave, they were stopped by a female dressed in luxurious clothing. Behind her followed a group of male and female military officers. It was Princess Catherine, who had long admired the two brothers. The princess smiled happily when she saw them. But then, remembering the recent rumors, her smile gradually froze on her face. I heard you two have been pursuing a female without pheromones recently. To win her favor, you even transformed into your beast forms in public. Is that true? Hearing this, Fred and Enzo exchanged a silent glance. Today was General Yasilandi's funeral, and this was his memorial hall. Yet she chose this moment to bring up such things. They no longer hid their intentions, nodding in admission. Catherine was instantly furious. She was a princess above all others, and furthermore, a precious S-grade female of the Empire. Where did she fall short compared to that useless female? Fred and Enzo frowned. In our hearts, no one can compare to her. Princess Catherine's eyes turned red with anger. No matter how excellent they were still just males. How dare they publicly humiliate her, the Empire's eldest princess? So she decided not to tolerate it anymore, and directly unleashed her pheromones. Everyone present was shocked. Princess Catherine's pheromone grade was S, The pheromones she was emitting now were S1-induced sex hormones. All S-grade and below males could not resist. This was clearly intended to embarrass the Empire's twin stars. The two brothers, faces turned pale, and sweat beaded on their foreheads. Their bodies trembled uncontrollably, yet they still stood upright. Seeing this, Catherine increased the pheromone concentration again. Fred felt as if his entire being was about to ignite. He felt platinum feathers faintly appear on his arms. Enzo was no better off. He was so hot, he felt like tearing himself apart, his heart burning. He uncontrollably let out a wolf howl. Catherine walked triumphantly to the disheveled brothers. "Officers, are you in pain? Kneel and beg me to be your female master, and I will satisfy you." Hearing this, Fred and Enzo slowly raised their eyes, which were horrifyingly crimson like hot iron brands. Just when Catherine thought they were about to submit, they gritted their teeth and refused again. "How can this be?" Catherine stumbled back in shock. The male desire for female pheromones was encoded in their genes. No matter how strong their will, resistance should be impossible. Fred and Enzo were also afraid they would lose their minds and begged the princess for solace. But when the symptoms of being forced into heat were induced, they found that they didn't desire Catherine's pheromones at all. Her salty seawater pheromones were like gasoline, making the fire within them rage even fiercer. What they truly yearned for was a familiar, cool, and clean scent. What was it? They held their heads, their minds reeling, not realizing they were repeatedly murmuring a certain name. More than having her dignity challenged, the denial of her female pheromones filled Catherine with panic and rage. She unleashed her pheromones with all her strength. Fred was in such agony that he tore out the feathers growing on his body, and Enzo transformed into a half-human, half-beast form, curled up in pain. Tens of thousands of people, golden flag nobles, illustrious dignitaries, and common citizens who came to mourn, looked at the beloved twin stars of the Empire being tormented to this extent. Every one of them felt unbearable sorrow, yet no one dared to step forward to dissuade her. Catherine was a high-grade S-level female. There were only two people on the planet who could control her. One was the mother of the nation, Queen Jenny, an sulfur monosulfide grade top-tier female. Unfortunately, Catherine was her only daughter, spoiled immensely, and the queen condoned whatever she did. The other was General Yasalandi, the male with the strongest combat power in history, but he had already fallen. Finally, a marchioness who was close to Lady Joy couldn't watch any longer. She knelt, trembling, and pleaded with the princess. "Please stop, Your Highness. The Empire has just lost a great general, and the enemy forces are watching with keen eyes. To harm two outstanding officers now might incite public outrage." Catherine, panting, retracted her hand, but it wasn't due to the Marchioness's plea. She was utterly defeated. Her fingers trembling, she looked at the twin stars of the Empire, her previous arrogance completely gone, replaced by deep terror. They had actually managed to overcome their desire for pheromones. "Go, you're already in heat. Wait to be torn to pieces if you can't get pheromones." She spat out a final threat before hurriedly leaving with her group of male escorts. On the other side, in the Juqing Villa district, Su Tongtong had just opened her terminal when she saw an urgent trending topic pushed by the planet's news service. She clicked into it, and seeing the blood-soaked Fred and the aggressively maddened Enzo, she felt like she had been struck by lightning. Without time to think, Su Tongtong grabbed the inhibitor, followed the real-time tracking location on her terminal, and arrived at the Earl's residence. Su Tangtang pushed past the guards and rushed inside. Lady Joy was weeping hysterically, completely collapsed on the ground. The Earl beside her was also filled with worry, sighing repeatedly, unsure of what to do. Lady Joy saw Su Tangtong and was instantly filled with grief and indignation. Isn't this the female her two sons risked their lives to pursue? It's all her fault. It's her fault that her sons became like this. Lady Joy rose from the ground, her teeth chattering with rage. "What are you doing here? They angered the princess because of you and were forced into heat by pheromones. Now their minds are deranged, and they're self-harming. You have no pheromones. Are you planning to comfort them with trivial niceties and gentle persuasion? Ridiculous." Su Tangtang opened her medical box. "I have an inhibitor." Lady Joy grew even angrier upon seeing it. Who doesn't know that inhibitors have serious side effects and can only be used a week before the heat period? Are you mocking me? This is a new type of inhibitor, specifically developed for their physique. It can be used during the heat period and is harmless to the body. Lady Joy paused. A new type of inhibitor? How come I don't know about it? I just developed it. I am a researcher at the Imperial National Science Institute. So Tang Tang was about to show her the badge on her chest, but realized she had forgotten to wear it in her haste. Lady Joy laughed in exasperation. The Institute has such a high barrier and is so demanding. When has there ever been a female there, let alone a researcher? Get out! Don't come here and cause trouble! Unable to tolerate her anymore, she opened her palm and unleashed an S3 warning class pheromone to expel her. She was an S-grade female, and dealing with a low-level female without pheromones was as simple as stepping on an ant. That blow should make her vomit blood even if she wasn't seriously injured. But to her utter shock, Su Tangtang slowly raised her eyes, her strong gaze acting like an invisible barrier that not only completely deflected the attack, but also enveloped Lady Joy in immense pressure, making it difficult for her to even breathe. How can this be? She doesn't have pheromones. Take me to see Colonel Fred and Major Enzo, Su Tangtang commanded. The immense pressure instantly lifted. Without time to think, Lady Joy felt only a desire to comply and submit, almost to the point of kneeling in reverence. Following her, Su Tangtang quickly arrived at the back hill, where a tall, fully enclosed building made of steel stood. Lady Joy wiped away a tear. This is a temporary confinement area set up by the military, usually for dangerous prisoners. Fred and Enzo locked themselves inside. As she opened the visible screen on the door, a shocking scene was immediately displayed. Inside the cage, the two brothers had fully transformed into their beast forms, crazily throwing themselves against the walls, which were now smeared with blood. Fred's palms were a bloody mess, and the vibrant green in Enzo's eyes conveyed immense ferocity, as if all reason had been lost. "Open the door quickly! Let me in!" Su Tangtang manually snapped open the ampoule, drew the inhibitor into the syringe, and stepped into the pitch-black cell. Su Tangtang broke open the ampoule with his bare hands, inhaled the inhibitor, and stepped into the pitch-black prison cell with a syringe in hand. At this moment, a familiar, cool scent permeated the space filled with the thick smell of blood. The two brothers instantly focused. Previously, they had been in pain, irritable, and going mad, but their reason was always clear. They were fighting against the pheromones with all their might. Success would be a miracle, and they would never be controlled by the princess again. But when they smelled this scent, the string of tension in their minds suddenly snapped. They completely lost the ability to think. Every cell in their bodies screamed for him, even if they had to kneel and beg, even if they had to give up their lives. It turned out that they were not fighting the craving for pheromones, but that the desired pheromone had not yet arrived. Su Tangtang originally planned to make a quick decision, as they had already turned into beasts and the situation was extremely dangerous. But after entering, he found that the cage, which had been restless moments before, was now quiet, which was very unusual. The surroundings were also pitch black, and he couldn't see anything clearly. He bravely took a chance and called out their names. The next second, a massive paw wrapped around his waist from behind, fiercely pressing him firmly into a burning embrace. Before Su Tangtang could recover from the shock, another giant creature flew towards him with outstretched wings, scaring him into immediately closing his eyes. The ready-to-use inhibitor was knocked out of his hand and fell to the ground. When she reacted, she was tightly hugged like a sandwich cookie by a wolf and an eagle. The huge size and power difference made it impossible for her to break free. It is over. They have not really lost control and turned into beasts to eat her, have they? Just as Su Tangtang was about to try to appeal to their reason, she felt the fierce snow wolf behind her suddenly stick out its tongue and frantically lick her hair and cheeks. Its limbs also rubbed wildly. It is the scent of fairy wood, so fragrant and fresh, so comfortable. He wants to roll around. More, more. Will Tangtang give it to him? Please. Before Su Tangtang could react, she saw the golden eagle in front of her. Its long and beautiful neck and wings were also constantly trembling, seemingly begging her for a stroke. Seeing that she still had not moved, the majestic golden eagle actually let out a whimper, similar to a chick's chirping. Tang Tang. Touch, touch. I can give you my life. Su Tangtang gently reached out and touched its feathers. Fred immediately trembled all over with pleasure. Heavenly Snow Lotus. It is the cool, icy pheromone of the Heavenly Snow Lotus. Su Tangtang's eyelids twitched. She had originally thought these two officers, the wolf and the eagle, would transform into savage beasts and ruthlessly tear her to shreds piece by piece. Now, however, they were pitifully begging for strokes, no different from two pets. A chick and a big doggy. She could take them home to keep Lan Lan company. Su Tangtang immediately got down to business. Let go of me and stand at attention, left and right. Then I will give you the inhibitor. The golden eagle and the snow wolf immediately let go of her obediently and stood at attention. Su Tangtang picked up the 2 vials of inhibitor and, as a reward, reached out her hands to stroke the back of their necks. Unexpectedly, the 2 beasts suddenly reacted as if they were stressed. Their whole bodies stiffened. Fred's eyes lost focus, and his white and gold feathers all bristled. Enzo, on the other hand, drooped his head and stuck out his tongue, his body limp like a blanket, impossible to lift. Su Tangtang did not know that the 2 men had damaged the protective membrane on the back of their necks while resisting the princess's sex pheromones. Injecting a large amount of sex pheromones was tantamount to a pseudo-marking. Seeing that they had completely lost their ability to attack, Su Tangtang injected them with the new inhibitor. In the hall on the other side, Mrs. Joey suddenly woke up with a start, as if freed from some magical control. What had she just done? She actually led Su Tangtang into the prison cell. Her 2 sons had lost control and turned into beasts that would tear her apart alive. Previously, she had been blinded by anger and recklessly used pheromones to attack her, which was already a violation of the law. If she were to cause the death of a precious female again, their whole family would suffer. She rushed to the back mountain in a panic, terrified of seeing a bloody and horrifying scene. What she saw, however, was in the cell. Fred and Enzo were tightly nestled next to Su Tangtang, like a couple of obedient birds and a pair of affectionate large dogs, demanding pets and hugs. They were even more clingy to Su Tangtang than they had been to her as children. She was dumbfounded. What is going on? Su Tangtang took out 2 detection wristbands and showed them to Mrs. Joey. They displayed a mental breakdown index of only 10 and 11, which was an extremely low level the boys only reached during their wall fortress training. Mrs. Joey's jaw practically dropped. How did you do that? I told you, I am a researcher at the Imperial National Academy of Sciences, and this is the latest inhibitor I developed. The results look good now, instantly. Mrs. Joey's eyes welled up with tears of joy, gratitude, and deep guilt. She had actually used the inhibitor to save Fred and Enzo's lives, to rescue her 2 sons. I am sorry. I am sorry. Miss Su Tangtang, I was just. Seeing that Su Tangtang understood, Mrs. Joey could not wait to hug her sons. But Fred blocked her with his hands, and Enzo heartlessly kicked her, as if saying, "Do not even think about separating me from Tang Tang." Mrs. Joey was speechless. "Fine, boys, you get a wife and forget your mother, is that it?" Su Tangtang smiled and explained, "They are currently in a state of confused consciousness. Mrs. Joey, please wait outside. I will come out once I have soothed them to sleep." Mrs. Joey had no choice but to leave the cell. Peering through the monitor screen and seeing the warm and harmonious scene inside, she finally understood why her sons liked Su Tangtang so much. Beauty was only a superficial appearance. Her core was gentleness, intelligence, calmness, and compassion. How could anyone resist such a female? 4 hours later, Su Tangtang emerged, looking exhausted, and saw that Mrs. Joey had already prepared water and food for her. She sincerely thanked her and then was asked if she truly had no pheromones. Su Tangtang shook her head, confirming she did not. Mrs. Joey found it unbelievable. She had clearly suppressed her just now, and even if Su Tangtang had pheromones, they should not have been able to overpower her, unless her pheromone level was as high as that of SS grade Queen Jenny. Just then, a guard ran over with a letter in his hand, 2 court summonses, addressed to Fred and Enzo. Mrs. Joey quickly tore it open, and after reading it, she burst into uncontrollable tears. The princess had filed a lawsuit. What awaited Fred and Enzo was either bowing their heads, admitting fault to the princess, and obediently becoming her consorts, or endless years of imprisonment. Fred and Enzo, for your sake, were willing to endure the agony of a complete breakdown during their rut, refusing to submit to the princess, let alone the law. They would not even bat an eye at it. This was the 2nd time Su Tangtang had heard this from her mouth. Mrs. Joey, I think you have misunderstood something. Fred and Enzo's refusal of the princess's marriage is not because of me. Before I appeared, did the princess ever propose marriage to the officers? Did they agree? Mrs. Joey was speechless. I do not think so. In many noble marriages, the female requires the male to give up his job and stay home to care for his wife and children. Especially in the royal family. To show power and status, they are not even allowed to appear in public. So I guess the reason the two officers did not agree to this marriage is that they do not want to give up their dreams of being soldiers. Madam, do not you know that these two are ambitious military men? Otherwise, they would not have achieved what they have at such a young age. Mrs. Joey was filled with shame upon hearing this, barely able to lift her head. After all these years of raising her sons, she did not know them as well as someone she had just recently met. How do you know this? Did they tell you? No, because, like them, I also have a dream I am willing to give everything for. Mrs. Joey looked at the medical kit in Su-Tang-Tang's hand and recalled her earlier words. At such a young age, and as a female, she even developed a miraculous new inhibitor. She is truly no ordinary person. Then what should they do? They are so stubborn. Will they really go to jail? The court date is in a few days. Please take care of them and ensure they safely pass through the rut period. I will find a way to handle the rest. Find a way? What way can there be? The next day, Su-Tang-Tang recovered her energy and began thinking about how to help Fred and Enzo through their predicament. She virtually flipped through the entire imperial marriage law, but found no useful clause. Just as she felt discouraged, her eyes fell upon the thick imperial constitution at the very bottom. With a last flicker of hope, she opened it and actually found something useful. An orphaned female under the age of 25, without a father, mother, or close relatives, may apply to the government for male support to become a guardian. The chosen males may, during this period, refuse other females' marriage requests. That is wonderful. She had never been so grateful for her status as an orphan. The court date is in 3 days, so applying now is perfectly feasible. Meanwhile, Fred and Enzo, who had been sleeping for a day and a night, finally woke up. In their dream, when they broke down mentally and transformed into their beast forms, suffering and beginning to self-mutilate, they saw Su-Tang-Tang. So the first thing they asked Mrs. Joey upon waking was, "Mother, did Tang-Tang come here?" After receiving an affirmative answer, the two brothers could not wait to go find her. The next second, Mrs. Joey stopped them. "Sons, look at this." After the two brothers took the summons, their mood instantly sank again. Sure enough, the princess would not let them go easily. But did she think this would threaten them? Mrs. Joey looked at their expressions and knew their minds were made up. She sighed lightly. Su-Tang-Tang was right. She truly understood them better than I do. "Mother, did Tang-Tang say anything?" Mrs. Joey opened the living room monitor and played back their conversation. Fred and Enzo stared intently at the girl in the video when they heard her say that they were two ambitious soldiers willing to give everything for their dreams. Their hearts trembled. It was a high level of soul compatibility, even more shocking than physical pleasure. Tang-Tang is indeed the most unique person in the world, the one who understands them best. They desperately wanted to be with her, forever and ever, but there was no chance now. Fred looked at the summons in his hand. The iron-willed colonel, who had never shed a tear, felt his eyes sting for the first time. Enzo turned his head and walked into his room. Since they were about to become prisoners, they should not have any further contact with her. They do not deserve her. The next day, Su-Tang-Tang received a stamped reply approving her guardian application. She happily prepared to share the news with Fred and Enzo, only to find that neither of them had contacted her for 2 days and 2 nights. They were clearly awake. This ungrateful eagle and ungrateful wolf. Su-Tang-Tang was about to contact them proactively when Mrs. Joey's light screen call came through. "Miss Su-Tang-Tang, please, I beg you to come to the manor quickly. Fred and Enzo are torturing themselves to death. They have locked themselves in their rooms, have not eaten a single grain of rice for 2 days and 2 nights, and have been drinking heavily. If this continues, they will collapse before the court date." Su-Tang-Tang breathed a sigh of relief. So it was not a problem with the inhibitor. They were just sulking. "It is all right, let me handle it." In the dark room, Fred and Enzo sat slumped in a corner, looking weak, unconsciously mumbling Su-Tang-Tang's name. Then, the ringtone for a special contact sounded. Both of their bodies jolted. Although they missed Su-Tang-Tang every moment, seeing her terminal name made them hesitate and shrink back. Finally, Fred answered the call. "Is something the matter?" Su-Tang-Tang listened to his deliberately distant tone and almost laughed. "Colonel, if your acting is bad, do not try to be brave." She suppressed her laughter and said, "I heard you received a court summons and are facing life imprisonment. Since we are acquaintances, do you want to come out and see me one last time?" The words "last time" caused a significant mental shock to Fred. Yes, the last time. After this, he would never see Tang-Tang again in prison. So Fred answered in a hoarse voice, "Okay, Perhaps seeing her one last time would be enough to sustain him through the long years in prison. What about Enzo? Although he usually gets jealous of his brother, this last meeting is for both him and his brother Enzo. Let him be. I called his terminal several times, but no one answered. He probably has no interest in me at all. No need to bother, right? In the adjacent room, Enzo, with his sharp, pointed wolf ears and keen hearing, immediately sprang up from the floor. He does. He loves Tang Tang. He loves Tang Tang the most. Without a moment's hesitation, he called Su Tang Tang. Tang Tang, I want to see you too. After hanging up, Fred and Enzo immediately got up, showered, shaved, fixed their hair, and changed clothes in one smooth motion. In the hall, Mrs. Joey, who had been at a loss, suddenly saw her two sons, who had been moping in their rooms all day, come out. Not only did they come out, but they were both impeccably dressed, handsome, and distinguished. Mrs. Joey was stunned. She had tearfully and earnestly persuaded them for 2 days, and they had acted as if they had not heard a word. Su Tang Tang made one terminal call, and they immediately rushed out. What a misfortune. How did she give birth to two such hopeless romantics? Fred and Enzo followed the location Su Tang Tang had provided to the west side of the city and just happened to see Su Tang Tang step out of a flying vehicle. She held a light-colored parasol, wore high heels and a velvet dress, and was breathtakingly beautiful. Even though they had seen her many times, the two brothers were still captivated. Su Tang Tang waved to them from a distance. Seeing they were not reacting, she walked over. What is wrong? Did being locked up at home make you silly? Do not just stand there. Come in with me. The two men snapped out of it. Come in. Where? They looked up and saw that they were standing beneath a tall building. When they saw the words written on it, they were shocked. Why did Tang Tang bring them to the Civil Affairs Bureau? Could it be for marriage? Tang Tang, no. They were about to become prisoners and were completely unworthy of her, but the fact that she cared about them and was willing to accept them was the greatest fortune of their lives. Su Tang Tang noticed their constantly changing expressions and leaned in slightly. What are you two thinking? You do not actually think I brought you here to register for marriage, do you? Crack? All the beautiful imaginations and painful dilemmas in Fred and Enzo's minds shattered, turning into unparalleled embarrassment. They had been so presumptuous. Su Tang Tang suppressed a laugh. Of course not. Hurry up and go in. There is important business to attend to. The two brothers, faces instantly flushed red, they followed the girl step by step, like two ostriches wishing they could bury their faces in their clothes. It was so embarrassing. Inside the hall, Su Tang Tang handed the application form to the staff member at the counter. The person carefully reviewed it, then stood up and asked, Respected Miss, are the guardians you have chosen these two gentlemen behind you? Please have them come over to sign. Su Tang Tang turned and gestured to them, only to see Fred and Enzo completely dumbfounded. Guardians. What is that? It means that an orphaned female under the age of 25 can apply to the state for 2 male guardians to ensure a basic livelihood. During this period, they cannot marry, or it will violate the Constitution. In other words, you can refuse the princess's marriage. Su Tang Tang curled her lips, waiting for them to show happy expressions. A few minutes passed, and the two men remained motionless, as if they were truly dumbfounded. Just as she was about to speak, they suddenly rushed forward and tightly hugged her. This time, it was Su Tang Tang's turn to blush. She was an 18-year-old girl in the prime of her youth, hugging men in public, and 2 of them at that. The surrounding couples coming and going to register cast envious glances at them. The way those 2 males were holding the little female in their arms was so tight and full of strength, as if they wanted to merge into her very bones and blood. It was clear they were madly in love. Not like their own males, who were stiff and proper like blocks of wood, completely lacking in passion. Fred and Enzo's actions were purely instinctive, completely overwhelmed by immense joy. They could refuse the princess's marriage. They could continue to be with Tang Tang. Had Tang Tang been trying to save them all these days? How could she be so good? She was the most wonderful being in the world, and they were utterly in love with her. Su Tang Tang poked the men's firm chests with her fingertip. It is time for you to sign. She did not even dare to look at the staff members' eyes. Would they believe her if she said they were just acting out of gratitude? Next, Fred and Enzo acted as if they had taken a stimulant, smiling the entire time. Su Tang Tang was also infected by their happiness. On the other side, at the royal palace, Princess Catherine was lounging on a large, sturdy black panther. How did it go? If they are not afraid of pheromones, they should be afraid of death, right? The Central Star prison has set after set of torture devices, and few people who go in come out alive. The servant trembled. The summonses were delivered, but they were withdrawn. The court's reason is that the twin stars have become the guardians of an orphaned female and have the right to refuse marriage. What? Princess Catherine roared, kicking several of the male soldiers serving her to the ground. An orphan? It is that useless female without pheromones again. Someone, go and bring that useless female to the palace. The outwardly harmless small tiger was, in secret, a decisive and bloodthirsty war god. Facing two formidable S-grade military males, he actually pounced on both of them, knocking them down. Just moments ago, after Su Tangtang and the two brothers left the Civil Affairs Bureau, she took them home. She calculated the time. Lanlin had been sleeping for 3 days. It was time for him to wake up. Since formulating the restorative solution for Lanlin's injured wing, he had gradually been sleeping for 20 hours, sometimes even all day. But each time he woke up, his energy was better than ever. Not only was the broken wing growing, but his body size was also visibly increasing. He must be accelerating his growth and development in his sleep. The little guy has slept for so long this time, he must be starving. If he does not get his goat milk in time, he will throw a tantrum and tear the house apart. Fred and Enzo were curious when they heard this. Tang Tang, you have a pet. What is it? Su Tangtang thought of the fierce little tiger and smiled, deliberately keeping them guessing. It is a very cute little guy. You will know when we get there. Hearing the word cute, Fred and Enzo only envisioned adorable pets like kittens and puppies. They never expected that as soon as the door opened, a large white figure, accompanied by a ferocious roar, would lunge at them. It is a tiger's roar. Su Tangtang heard the somewhat familiar, yet unfamiliar, sound and immediately reacted, rushing forward to block him. Lan. No, she recalled Lanlin's strong territoriality and possessiveness. He even got jealous of the scent of other males on her, let alone bringing them home. She should have thought of this and discussed it beforehand. Fred and Enzo were S-grade combat males. Even a fully grown tiger could be easily killed with one slap, let alone a small cub. If Lanlin suddenly attacked, they would definitely be injured. However, they were stunned by the scene before them. The tiger actually knocked both of them down. Not only was Su Tangtang surprised, but the twin stars, who were caught off guard and knocked down with no chance to resist, instantly widened their pupils when they looked closely. General, the two men cried out in unison, their souls shaken. The small tiger pressed down on them, baring his teeth and snarling fiercely. After sniffing their scent, he lost interest and released them, as if merely asserting his place in the family hierarchy, having no interest in harming them. Then, he immediately returned to his harmless, well-behaved tiger demeanor, wagging his head and tail as he eagerly rushed towards Su Tangtang. Owner, you are back. Owner, I missed you so much. Owner, look, I did not eat your lifesavers. Am I a good boy? Quick kiss and hug Lanlan. Su Tangtang took 2 steps back, barely able to bear his weight. Lanlan, why are you bigger again? The small tiger was very satisfied with his current height. His paws could firmly clutch his owner's waist, and his head could rub into his owner's arms. It was absolutely heavenly. He kept rubbing, making a purring sound like a cat, as he acted spoiled. Su Tangtang thought this behavior was an implicit hint that he was hungry and wanted milk. So she rubbed his head and said with a spoiled smile, "Okay, I will make you a bottle of milk right away. But first, let me introduce you to 2 people. What about Fred and Enzo?" They were still in their previous positions, staring motionlessly at Lanlan, their eyes full of shock and suspicion. "What is wrong with you two? Lanlan did not hurt you, did he? This is General Yasilandi, the rare, noble, mutated white tiger born into the Duke of Al's family, unique in the world. Only the general possessed one, but the general was cold-blooded, arrogant, and bloodthirsty, and never came near females. Why would he be wagging his head and tail and acting spoiled towards a female like this?" Su Tangtang was stunned for a moment, then burst out laughing as if she had heard the most preposterous joke. How is that possible? He is just an ordinary small tiger. The 2 men still did not believe it. How could a white tiger be ordinary? To prove it to them, Su Tangtang brought a terminal and performed a physical examination on Lanlan right there. Aside from some bone growth and an improvement in his health index to excellent, the screen still showed him as an ordinary tiger. The 2 men carefully checked the examination report several times and then watched the white tiger holding a bottle of milk, lying in Tangtang's arms, sucking obediently like a cub. He had none of the general's powerful presence, and their doubts were finally dispelled. Yes, what were they thinking? The general was hit by a gas bomb. How could he possibly still be alive? As for the breed, perhaps the continuous peace in recent years had allowed spiritual energy to flourish, and many rare species had reappeared. Why? Oh, you two, have a cup of tea. I will go organize his things. Tang Tang, I will help you. So Tang Tang smiled and shook her head. No need. Yes, no need. Do not come in and disturb him and the owner's private time. The small tiger, holding his milk bottle, strutted proudly behind the girl and headed upstairs. Lanlan, why did you come too? When Su Tangtang finished tidying up, she turned around and saw the small tiger had thrown his milk bottle aside and was sprawled out on her bed, belly up, fast asleep. It is the owner's bed. Since he was caught sneaking milk last time and was chased off, he had not had a chance to get back up here. It felt so good, so comfortable. He wanted to sleep in the owner's bed forever. Sleep after eating, you lazy tiger. Su Tang Tang laughed, rubbing his furry belly. Sleep well, my little sweetheart. She left her jacket behind as if it was a substitute for her hand firmly grasping him and went downstairs. Tang Tang, where is the white tiger? Will he be okay alone at home? Should we bring him to the manor? No need, he is asleep. And based on the cycle, this sleep will last at least 10 days. 10 days or more. What kind of tiger sleeps that long? Su Tang Tang smiled. His wings should be fully healed when he wakes up this time. At the Earl's residence, Mrs. Joey was busy organizing decorations, ingredients, and guests first thing in the morning. When Su Tang Tang arrived, she was startled by the scale of the preparations. She thought it was just going to be a simple meal, but it looked more like a banquet. The invited guests gathered around her, full of curiosity. You are so handsome. I heard you are a researcher at the Imperial Academy of Sciences. That is incredible. Their eyes were full of gossip as they looked at Fred and Enzo behind her. She managed to capture the hearts of the Imperial twin stars simultaneously. You know, they even rejected the princess. The banquet is ready. What are you all still talking about? Mrs. Joey walked over and enthusiastically took Su Tang Tang's hand, leading her to her seat. Auntie, this is too grand today. You are too kind. It is nothing. Since Fred and Enzo have become your guardians, we are a family from now on. Fred and Enzo's ears turned slightly red when they heard a family. Mrs. Joey smiled and arranged for Su Tang Tang to sit between the two brothers. During the banquet, Su Tang Tang barely extended her chopsticks. With just one look, Fred and Enzo scrambled to add food to her plate, pour her soup, and wipe her mouth. Mrs. Joey watched from across the table, stunned. She had not realized her two sons were so fond of Su Tang Tang. As long as there were no outsiders, they were practically trying to hand-feed her. They had been trained in martial arts since childhood and, like most soldiers, were rough in nature. When had they ever been so gentle and meticulous with anyone? But perhaps they were being too gentle, appearing overly polite. Sometimes, females do not completely appreciate males who are too polite and reserved. Thinking this, she raised a glass of wine. Tang Tang, since you have come to the banquet today, Auntie has 3 glasses of wine to toast you. Fred was about to stop her, but was silenced by Mrs. Joey's look. Enzo was confused. What was Mother doing? Even a normal male could not handle 3 glasses of this wine. Tang Tang would surely get drunk. It is okay, Enzo. When an elder offers a toast, how can one refuse? So Tang Tang believed she had a decent tolerance for alcohol. She had outdrunk many colleagues before. 3 glasses was nothing. Su Tang Tang downed the first glass in one go. The taste was quite good. She finished the second glass as well. When Mrs. Joey was about to toast the 3rd glass, Fred could not help but grab her hand. Tang Tang, that is enough. Do not drink anymore. Since it is a toast to us, let us drink it on your behalf. Fred snatched the glass. Enzo poured himself a glass as well. They both drank it for her. Su Tang Tang looked at them and shook her head, finding it amusing. They really underestimated her. What was 2 glasses of wine? How drunk could she get? But suddenly, she realized something was wrong with the wine. It was too strong. Suddenly, a dizzying sensation of the world spinning came over her. Enzo quickly held her up, and Fred rushed over to check on her. Sure enough, she was drunk. Mother. Why are you still calling her mother? Mother. Cannot you see Tang Tang is drunk? Hurry up and take her upstairs to attend to her. Fred and Enzo were momentarily stunned. No, they were still pursuing Tang Tang. They had not confessed or mated yet. They had to maintain a certain distance. Especially at a time like this, taking advantage of her, Tang Tang would definitely hate them when she woke up. Why are you standing there? Cannot you see Tang Tang is uncomfortable? These two silly boys, are they really planning to be guardians forever? Fred looked down and saw the girl lying on the table, eyes slightly closed, looking genuinely uncomfortable. He bent down and scooped her up in a princess carry. Enzo was immediately furious. He actually took advantage of Tang Tang being drunk to hug her. He had not even hugged Tang Tang yet. Enzo. Mrs. Joey frowned, reprimanding him with her eyes. Male jealousy is not a virtue, especially when the other person is his own brother. It is right for the two brothers to take care of Tung Tung together. Enzo understood and quickly followed them upstairs. The groggy Su Tung Tung thought she was at home. She suddenly felt hot all around, as if someone was nestled closely against her. Is it Lan Lan? That bold tiger dared to sneak up again while she was asleep. Let us see how she will teach him a lesson. She opened her mouth and bit his ear. Fred, who was hurrying upstairs, froze instantly. But Su Tung Tung was not satisfied with the texture. Lan Lan, why did your ear become so hard? It does not taste good. Her head swayed and rubbed gently against Fred's chest like a spoiled child. Fred's blood rushed to his head. His whole body felt wrong. Every step he took felt like walking on knives. It was intensely agonizing. This feeling was somewhat similar to the day he was induced into rut by pheromones. Tang Tang, do not tempt him like this. He gritted his teeth and used all his strength to control himself, finally delivering her to the room on the second floor. Enzo, you watch her. I will go get some water to wipe the sweat off her. At close range, looking at the beautiful face of the person he loved, Enzo stared blankly, unable to tear his gaze away. To suppress the dirty thoughts in his mind, Enzo could only grab the nearby blanket and cover her body. Unexpectedly, halfway through covering her, the girl's arm suddenly grabbed him. Her emerald eyes gradually turned red. She lowered her head and kissed him directly. Fred entered the room carrying water and saw this scene. Furious, he dropped the water and punched Enzo's body. Enzo rubbed his face, also trying to regain his clarity. The two brothers were going crazy. Faintly, it reminded them of the memory of that day of rut. The wounds, the intense heat, and the inhibitor. The situation was similar now, but there was no inhibitor. Thinking this, they both suddenly smelled pheromones shortly after realizing they were emanating from Tang Tang's body. The next morning, Su Tung Tung woke up and saw two handsome faces close by, Fred and Enzo. She quickly checked her clothes. Thankfully, they were intact. She let out a long breath of relief, feeling much more relaxed. She tiptoed out of bed, afraid of waking them, and then scurried out of the room like a thief. A few seconds later, Fred and Enzo opened their bloodshot eyes, seeing the little female, who had greased the soles of her feet to quickly escape. Both were instantly charmed by her cuteness. But did Tang Tang's body emit pheromones just now? Did her pheromone C, which was severely damaged, recover? Or was it a secondary differentiation?